He who holds the sword must next become the master, seeking out the stones with the carrot-nosed dog!
With a carrot-nosed dog, Nick?
Carrot-nosed dog. You better get used to freaking "it looks like a dog" jokes, because they'll be around forever. Hey everybody, it's Weekly Manga Recap time. I'm Nick, here with Chris, and we're talking about, well, Fairy Tail ended this week. We thought they would probably be ending maybe like 1 or 2 weeks later. So you get Rave Master discussion and into Fairy Tail discussion. So, yay!
Now, to be fair, for anyone who's concerned, they're like, holy shit, this episode's going to go on forever. 1, no, it's not happening.
No, it's not.
2, we'll be discussing Fairy Tail at a much larger length probably next week.
In bulk, yes.
We tend to do a retrospective episode when a series ends. So sometimes, you know, with Toriko and Bleach, we spent the first part of the episode just talking about the final chapter. But to be fair, there's not actually a whole lot to talk about Fairy Tail's last chapter, and we'll have plenty of time to discuss the series as a whole next week. So we'll be discussing Rave Master at the start of this.
All right. So, yeah, I don't know, anything you want to go over before we talk about Rave-olution, or however you pronounce that?
Rave-olution! Come on, Nick. Real Big Fish gave you...
Rave-olution!
Yeah. If you are curious, by the way, what we're referring to, so Rave Master is the anime, or the manga and anime that Hiro did, long-running one, I guess you say, that he did before Fairy Tail, and it never quite hit the same way Fairy Tail did, at least in the larger sense. It's a very popular series. It ran for, 30 volumes, so it's a pretty huge series. It's successful in that right, but it never reached the same kind of, like, cultural... like hit that Fairy Tail was, and I don't think the anime actually ran that long, and it very only briefly had any sort of success overseas like that. But there was a intro for it done by Real Big Fish, and it's a whole original song. You can hear it.
They didn't just do a 1-minute song. They did a whole track.
There's a full-length version of the song that I played at the opening list that you can find if you're curious, and it's all about Rave-olution.
Mm-hmm. It's actually, I mean, it talks about the series, you know.
It does. It mentions the carrot-nosed dog, the shadow stones, which I think is what they call dark brings in the U.S.
Right.
It's got all that in there. It's got tonfa guns. A professional musical artist had to sing the words tonfa guns at one point in this. So. Yeah.
If you would like to hear more about Rave-olution, you can actually go check out the bonus episode on weirdest dub songs, or best dub songs, I should say,
quote
is what it was called
best,
a couple of months ago. But yeah, it's a hilarious song. I love it, and it's really, really annoyingly catchy. So
yeah. So yeah, this is a talk about Rave Master, which a series I read a very long time ago, and I think for you this is your first time going through it.
Yeah, I had heard about Rave Master when it was running back on Toonami. Somehow I never heard the actual theme song because I never actually watched the show. But I did hear about it, and I saw it advertised and stuff. But yeah, I never checked it out. And I think it took me a while to realize that Hiro had done both series. Like, I don't think that I actually realized it up until he started doing one of his trillion different references to Rave Master within Fairy Tail itself. He's clearly got some fond memories of doing that series because, you know, even if you're familiar with Fairy Tail, then might remember that Urza and some of the others did a stage play that was very clearly just telling the tale of Rave Master. Plu, for some absurd reason, just shows up a few different times.
Jaleel
completely out of nowhere.
Jaleel is just Siegfried. It's the exact same design. It's like, just put him in this one.
There's a couple of different characters where you can definitely see the design sort of carried over into Fairy Tail. None so blatant as Jalal and Sieg, but sort of, I guess, in the way that Grimjow, you could see his roots in Zombie Powder. You could see Gajeel's roots in Musica.
Oh, really? I see a lot of gray in Musica.
I can see that too, but it's, he's got the screws in his eyebrows. So I'm like, oh, it's Gajeel. So.
Yeah, you can definitely see pieces of that in there. And yes, there is a reference to Musica in there with Panther Lily. I think they actually made... I feel like there's someone who actually had essentially the Ten Commandments sword in Fairy Tail at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
Lines, but yeah, so it's a popular series that, you know, Hero finished, completed, did some small stuff in the like in the in-between, then worked on Fairy Tail, and in that included quite a few references to the original in there. And I guess we're kind of living in that present right now where you can say, okay, Fairy Tail, much more popular series. I actually think there's an anime crossover between Rave Master and Fairy Tail, too.
Yeah, it's like Fairy X Rave or something like that.
Yeah, and the Jiggle Butt Gang makes it in, because that was the most beloved appearance we were all waiting for a comeback for. I couldn't find a Jiggle Butt Gang gif. I was so disappointed, but I was very happy with the results I got instead.
I don't actually say.
I couldn't find one, alright? I had to...
I found one while I was looking at the GIFs.
Well, I got distracted by the butts, alright? What do you want me to do, Nick? I'm a human, alright? I couldn't get that far. But anyways, we're referring to Rave Master now at this point. We're talking about Rave Master, since we like to kind of take a look at sometimes what authors who are finishing up long, successful series did previously. Or something kind of related to it, at least in some way. So... with Rave Master, I've mentioned the show, or the manga rather, a couple times, I'm sure, throughout the run of Weekly Manga Recap. It's been a long time since I had read this series, but I always kind of held fond memories for it, and, you know, I reference it several times, I think, when we start discussing, like, oh, hey, what's one of your favorite romances in the manga? Or, hey, what are some of your favorite villain groups? Or things like that. Like, there are just moments I look back and I'm like, oh, okay, these are some kind of, you know, things that I remember from Rave Master immediately, but it was definitely a place where I wasn't quite sure if the series was as good as I remembered it, if I only enjoyed it because I was a kid. Did it live up to what I thought it did? Because if I recalled when I was younger, thinking like, it kind of falls off towards the end, so it's like, does it really do that? Or, you know, essentially, what was it like? Because I wasn't sure how to think of it anymore after seeing Fairy Tail, reading through it, you know, doing it weekly for so long, how that kind of, you know, attention to Hero's writing would go one way and then change to something else later on. Does he just shoot out a fart triangle attack? All right, fair enough. I got distracted by guess someone posted in the chat. But yeah, I was very curious to see essentially how the series would hold up, so to speak.
And yeah, like as we said, I had never read it before. I knew that it had to be popular enough because even back in 2004, 2005, like, I would see it be referenced, even outside of, like, the commercials I saw. So I knew people were, like, aware of it, reading it, or watching it. Wasn't sure what to expect, though. Especially when you've got, you know, that very descriptive theme song, yes, you know, going on. It's like, it sounds fucking ridiculous. And if you look at it and you read it, you can definitely see that this was, you know, a series that was written by the same person. But I think that if you didn't know that you might be able to draw the conclusion that it wasn't. If you know what I mean. Because you could see that Hero's style had definitely changed over the course of writing it in between the two series. Especially his art, like in terms of character design, it feels like it really kind of sharpened up a little bit. Looking at the characters of Rave Master, especially early on, they seem a lot more noodly than his current designs do, in terms of the way that their limbs, especially, are drawn.
They do. It's very interesting because Hero, and I guess maybe it's the inverse to some sides, depending on who you like better. Hero and Oda's art styles get compared very frequently to one another. Because they're two of the more like cartoonishly drawn action series. You know, they're still very different styles to them, but they have similarities. And it's one unique part of it is that they both also started with a very similar kind of design that then evolved from there. Because One Piece has those same kind of designs too, with the very noodly kind of proportions you're talking about. Like if you look back to early Luffy, where, you know, there's not an edge on him anywhere, and you're like, oh, okay, it's kind of cool seeing that they both have that thing. I wonder if one of them is like a shadow doppelganger of the other, who like gained sentience and has been drawing manga independently for a while. But hey, you know, it's just kind of cool seeing that they have that that connection between themselves.
Yeah, 2000 Rave Master and One Piece look a lot more similar than 2017 Fairy Tail and One Piece do.
Oh yeah.
So you can tell that they kind of went in more in different directions as time went by.
Yeah, and you always have to kind of stress, because there are some people out there who will take it as a reason to create a fight when there isn't one. You always need to remember that these are two manga who are inspired by reading Dragon Ball, and when you read similar influences, your art style can reflect that, and to grow up in a similar way. There's, to my knowledge, there's nothing to say that there is any real legitimate claims of theft between either one of them. In fact, I don't even know if there's ever been any, I wonder if they're even aware of, I have to feel like they should be, but I feel like there's just, some void where somebody asks, hey, have you heard of Fairy Tail? And Oda's like, what? No, you're not supposed to mention, I just, get sucked into a void. No!
No, my parallel universe counterpart.
We can't be in the same place, you fool!
You just merge into one mega Oda hero. Oda hero. Hiroda.
So yeah. Let's get into Fairy Tail, Rave Master, because we've got.
Let's go back a few years to when Nick caught up with Fairy Tail.
Yeah, let's dig into this, 'cause we got a lot to talk about in that regard. I guess the quick and easiest is, how did you ultimately think Rave Master was? Because this is definitely a different time for Hero than what Fairy Tail was. There's all the comments that have been made about Fairy Tail kind of becoming something Hero started one way and then was told, hey, just kind of embrace the fan service and stuff like that. Just make what your fans want and move in a different direction.
It's going to be difficult to actually sum up my thoughts without them coming across in a way that I don't want them to. So basically, if you go back, you can definitely see a lot of the influences of stuff that was a few years before Rave Master came out. It's a lot more of a kind of, I guess, standard setup for a manga, which is not a bad thing. It's a very straightforward fantasy adventure tale that starts off with quickly identifiable characters and motivations. You've got Haru, who is, this guy who's on this island. He has no idea what the heck is really out there in the big wide world. And he stumbles into obtaining this power, where he is just essentially kind of gets this responsibility to save the world dropped in his lap. And he decides that he wants to do it. It's a very just hero's journey setup. He hears the call. He refuses the call at first, but then he decides to accept it, and he goes on and he has various adventures. This is done through Rave, the power of Rave, which is he has a sword. He has to gather these different stones so that he can unlock various abilities that are mostly channeled through the sword when he fights. That's really all you need to know up until this character gets introduced, and this character gets introduced, and so on. I was actually quite surprised that Ellie took 6 or so chapters to actually first show up, because she's the female lead of the series.
Yeah, you don't
there's a lot
get
of
her in the first volume at all, I don't think.
Yeah. A lot of time is spent just building up Haru himself, and getting to know just who he is. And I definitely feel like if we're going to compare, past and future for what Hero does, you definitely get a much stronger sense of Haru is all throughout the series, I feel like. Natsu, if you told me to sum up what sets him apart from a lot of other shonen heroes, I wouldn't really be able to tell you. Because, he does definitely very well embody those tropes that you see of he works out for his friends, and he's full of raging determination, and he's willing to follow his own path and stuff. But other than, he was raised by a dragon, what do you really know about him? And I feel like you get a much better sense of that with Haru. With his past with his father that he thought had abandoned him, the stuff with his sister, and that's the reason basically that he rejects the adventure at first, is that he thinks is because of his attachment to his sister. and then he just kind of feels that this is something that he's got to do. So Haru's a really nice, likable protagonist, right from the get-go, I would say.
Yeah, and I think there is definitely a much stronger, clearer sense you kind of get for what Haru is. And this is a personal taste thing to bring up here, but I kind of like the notion that Haru's personality isn't so over-the-top wacky as what a lot of characters in Fairy Tail kind of became. There's that kind of notion you could just create where Fairy Tail as a guild can kind of be summed up in a bunch of characters all around a tale being like, party, and that's it. Like, they just make loud noises and, like, dance and fight and things. They just do actions and scream, basically. Whereas
a
with
lot
Haru,
of them, you can define them by what their running gag is, really,
Yeah.
Natsu's the guy who, gets car sick. Gray's the guy who strips his clothes off. Juvie is the girl who falls in love with Gray. And Lucy is the one who plays straight man a lot. But Haru is actually gets to play straight man a whole lot in the series. With the stuff with Plu, with the stuff with because Ellie's a whack job, honestly, for a lot of this. And it's really more like, it actually makes perfect sense because he's this guy who's going out into this world who has no idea really what's out there waiting for him. So everything is new and strange and bizarre. So it makes perfect sense that he plays that role when he bounces off of people a whole lot.
Mhm.
Not to say that he's like bland or anything like that.
No, he's in a way, like, that's kind of what Ichigo was sort of known for being. Like, he was a straight-faced, like the straight man to it, but Haru's a little bit more able to go into the silly direction too when he needs to.
Yeah, he can go with the flow a lot more easily, you could say.
Yeah.
And then, surely enough, he meets Ellie, who seems very, friendly and wise. Not wise, I guess, but crafty, I guess is the way to put it, from the beginning. And then it turns out that she's just kind of insane. He meets her in this big gambling den, in this dog racing / fighting ring. And through bizarre circumstances, Plu, who we'll talk about in a minute, has been kidnapped, and so Haru is going to try and save him, and Plu is being made to run in this race. And so, for some reason, Ellie looks at him and is like, well, that's not a dog, that's a bug. So clearly, at the end, he'll be able to fly and win the race. So, but he's so bizarre that the odds against him are terrible, so I'm putting literally all of my money on him. Because clearly he's a bug that will fly. And Haru's just like, what? Why did you think that?
No one in this series, except for Haru, seems to recognize that Plu is just a thing.
Not an animal.
They're like, it's not a dog, it's not a bug. What do you keep seeing? And you're immediately like, that's a rabbit. Like, no, what about it is a rabbit?
And that, you would think that maybe Ellie would start to, kind of like loosen up on that a little bit. No, she just kind of keeps on following those weird, bizarre strings of logic for a long time. Which makes her a very comedic character. And honestly, it took me by surprise because I guess that subconsciously from, reading Fairy Tail, I was expecting her to basically be another Lucy. Be this straight woman who reacts to things as they're happening as opposed to helping to generate chaos on her own. But it definitely makes her feel like her own character that she does that.
It's interesting. The way we kind of have both experienced the series, I think, kind of gives unique perspectives on it. Because, and this is going to be getting into some spoiler stuff, but it's kind of hard not to, with the way we're going to have to go through this to, not dabble around a little bit. But I read this series first, then Rave Fairy Tail later. You did the inverse. And Rave Master is, I think, fair to say, a much simpler series. It's a much simpler premise. As you said, it's very stereotypical at the start, shonen adventure battle series. And its plot seems vaguely like disconnected from its power battling system. Like the Darkbrings are there, but they all have these arbitrary powers where you're just like, what force makes like my breath can blow off women's clothes or something like it? It's like, hey, it works for this fight. Don't argue with it. But in that way, and actually, the other point I was trying to make is that the main core cast is much more stereotypical as well. You have your male protagonist lead, your female side character, and then your third dude who's a little bit more of a mature kind of character. You have your Ash, Misty, and Brock, so to speak, essentially. Despite that, I found this group to be more interesting than I think the group that ultimately kind of comes into being like the main core cast of Fairy Tail. So despite the fact that like, as you said, like Ellie's not all that far removed from essentially just a few collection of different tropes, because she's also, you know, the mysterious character who doesn't have any memories. She's the character who's, you know, unintentionally potentially going to kill the world. You know, she's, as we find out, very mysterious in her very origins, things like that. There's these elements to her that kind of you've seen before, but didn't bother me as I read them through. I think just because they're not, you know, executed poorly. They're not forced down in a way that feels disingenuous. And reading through Rave Master again kind of reminded me is like, oh yeah, Hiro actually can legitimately write like slow building emotional scenes if he needs to. Some that are even more emotional than I remembered them being. I forgot how fucking brutal Siegfried meeting Ellie was the first time. That, holy shit, I forgot he shot poison down her throat directly to try to kill her, and she's like screaming for him to kill her because she just wants to die. It's fucking harsh shit.
It's definitely a differently paced series than Fairy Tail, and you can tell that a lot of that is just the fact that Fairy Tail, he kept on throwing stuff in. There is just not necessarily like, oh, and here's this other element, although that's definitely part of it, but in terms of everything is really compressed together in order to fit in more content. And things, you know, are allowed to just play out a lot more gradually in Rave Master, which, yeah, I have to admit, you know, especially towards the end, is quite surprising. Like, you would never, you know, if, for example, if Rave Master wants to make you think that the guy is dead, then they'll actually have him stay dead for a little while.
Yeah, they won't bring them back the next chapter, essentially.
And make it feel like, you know, things feel more like a big deal, I guess. But, you know, when you have stuff just happen constantly and have no slow moments ever, then that's just a more difficult sense to pull off. So it is, yeah, I definitely an indication like, okay, yeah, this could definitely be something that could be better from this author. Now, all that said, I hate this series.
Okay.
Because fuck Plu. Fuck Plu. That little stupid piece of shit.
What is it with you and your opinion on Battle Shonen series being made or broken based on their animal mascots?
Because he's in everything. He keeps on getting involved in fights and ruining them because he just randomly comedic reliefs all over it. It's like, can Haru win this? Well, sure, if Plu grabs that guy's weapon and steals it somehow and buries it because he's not a dog. And his fucking little stupid face, that stupid cusset. This, get him away. Take him away forever. Every joke is stupid if it involves Plu. Hate him.
Now, is this the sole reason you dislike Fairy? Or
pretty much. Because he just keeps getting involved in stuff. He's just this constant presence who keeps on fucking butting his head into things and ruining them.
All right.
It's like, people, you know, like, I know that people are going to bring up, it's like, oh, it's like how Nick hates Frosh. Well, yeah, except that Frosh wasn't present from the very beginning of the series, and then once he showed up, got involved in everything. Because he wasn't Natsu's sidekick. He was side character number 58 sidekick. So who cares if he's annoying for a little while compared to this stupid little narwhal dog thing showing up and interfering in everything. Because he's a plot central thing, and he's this stupid design thing. Oh my god. So I actually forget his name. The previous Rave Master before Haru.
Shiba, I think?
Right. He tells the story of how he basically failed to defeat evil, which was he got overconfident, and basically, in a last desperate attempt, frickin' whatever the fuck I just forget so much because because so much of this series I would just see this stupid little dog and be like, no, I'm done. Anyway, so the Darkbring, he's going to destroy the Darkbring, like, I don't know, 50 years in the past or some shit like that. But he got overconfident and didn't recognize what was happening, and the worldwide calamity occurred because of his oversight. But Plu protected him, shielded his body, and it's this weirdly dramatic image of this dead-eyed, vacant-faced narwhal dog holding its hands out like a freaking Christ figure to shield him from the blowback of the explosion that sets off. And it's like, look at that thing! How are you going to make that look heroic? And I'm the guy who likes Hawk from Seven Deadly Sins. And I'm just like, what is that thing? Stop it!
What's interesting is
it doesn't talk. It just goes poon, 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 poon.
And shakes.
Shut up!
Don't forget, it shakes a lot too.
And it shakes.
It is somewhat weird. There's never an explanation for Plu, like why Plu is what it is. Like I don't think we ever see like an island of other Plus or something like that in the world to say like, is this not an anomaly or what's happening here? It is strange, but it's kind of interesting because I'm used with Fairy Tail. I'd be like, well, this makes 100% sense because Fairy Tail just doesn't care about keeping like a dramatic tone for that long. It'll put a joke in everywhere. Like it just doesn't care. Like, yeah, of course you're gonna have like a dog that looks like nothing. It just like interferes and fights and things like that. It's a silly series. It doesn't take itself too seriously. Rave Master does take itself a little bit more seriously, but it still has comedy in it, so I can see how it connects.
Oh, it's got a lot of comedy in it.
But, like, in my mind, I would be like, well, Plu just fits more naturally in Fairy Tail. Surely it's the other way around, right? Like, yeah, I guess he really did come from here.
Yeah, when you think about, like, the animal sidekicks in Fairy Tail, for the most part, are either, become useful or they're downplayed in the serious moments. Whereas Plu is just seemingly omnipresent. And it is strange. Like, there are definitely moments in Rave Master, rather, where you could definitely tell there's a tonal shift. For example, the two major fights that Haru gets involved with in the beginning. The second one is very obviously a comedy fight. Because the people that he's fighting with aren't like pure evil. They've got this really weird, goofy motivation. They've kept this town under constant rain for apparently years. And it's all apparently so that they could shoot a movie with the proper atmosphere. Which is so bizarre that they aren't horrible, evil tyrants.
Yeah.
But then, like, the main villain is this director-obsessed guy who keeps on making all of these movie puns and talking about how he's going to make his greatest feature and stuff. And Plu gets involved in that fight, and he's the reason why Haru wins that. Fair enough. Because just before that, Ellie got her first fight against his female lead, who can make every guy do impractical dancing, just like they have to do coordinated disco dancing if they hear her song, but Ellie's immune to it because she's a girl, so she doesn't dance and they just fight normally. And so they're having this kind of semi-dramatic battle while Plu and Haru and the guy are all doing like these weird poses jittering around. Then you got the fight before that, which involves it's centered around Haru having to get his sword repaired so that he can go off on his adventure. Oh, yeah. Big dramatic thing, because he has to face down against like the first member of this order that, aside from the guy that, he unlocked his powers against. The guy uses the sword that was crafted by Musica the Blacksmith, the last sword that he crafted before agreeing to repair Haru's sword, which he killed his entire family with. And he can summon illusions, which can also turn into like real spectral figures. He summons all of these horrible, monstrous, ghostly dogs in order to attack his opponents. So Haru's fighting this guy, and he's getting bitten all over his body as he's trying to fight him and trying to find the secret in order to defeat him. And he wins that fight because of Plu too.
Now, you have a point. Plu does show up a lot, and I can absolutely 100% see why, if you don't like Plu, you're going to have an issue with Rave Master, because it's really not like you can just ignore him. Plu actually becomes...
He's central to the plot! He is a plot-important character!
Plu becomes a combat character at one point with the Rave of Combat.
You can't ignore him. He's deeply tied into the lore of the series. You can't, like, even like freaking Happy in Fairy Tail, to, you know, put Frosh aside. Happy, you could get past Happy being heavily involved in the series, because even when he's involved in fights, he's mostly just there to carry Natsu around. He doesn't ever become an actual combat character. And usually when things get really serious, he just kind of like doesn't get involved because Natsu's got to fight this guy and punch him in the face.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, to be fair, that fight does end with more dramatic tension built back into it as it deals with the original Musica basically going in to avenge his family, and Haru making the big proclamation about how he won't.
They pull a Goku and Frieza, basically.
Yeah, he's like, I won't let you kill him. That's not my way. I'll destroy his weapon. You know, there's a narrative after the comedy moment. So there is. It's not just every fight will end on a punchline sort of thing. And this is something though that Fairy Tail and Rave Master both have kind of an issue with. There are way too many fucking side characters in both these series. There's what would be considered, I guess, like the principal cast of Rave Master is about 5 characters. It'd be probably Haru, Ellie, Musica, Jet, and then, I guess, to a small degree, Julia, if you don't want to count just Plu as, like, just human people. But then there are all the other fucking side characters. There's Griffin. There's the fucking rabbit whose face shakes all the fucking goddamn time. There's just the countless side characters.
Hero's got this thing about non-human characters and making them goofy as balls.
I still don't. To this day, alright, you know you're a note of Plu? I cannot physically wrap my mind around what the fuck the son in the house at the start of the series is. What is he? What is he?
He's this weird sunflower, but he calls his petals feathers.
But he lives in the side of the house, Nick. He's not like a flower. He's in the house. Like
there's a really weird joke that I was.
He is this. He's the pen in the house. He's the pen in this. He's this. But he didn't start there. He apparently got to this.
He just got stuck in the house for some reason years ago.
I don't understand what he is, and he annoys me.
And Haru's sister jokingly says that they should get married when Haru sets off on his journey. And for a brief moment, I was like, is she being serious? I was like, I wouldn't put it past this weird-ass series. And Nakani was like, what the fuck? And she's like, just kidding.
It's confusing because Haru's like, what are you talking about? This dog's insane! As there is a flower sun growing out of the side of his house, and no one's addressing it.
It's just this sunflower sticking out of the walls like, that dog's the weirdest fucking animal I've ever seen!
He does, like, the fucking flower's just like, I don't think that's any kind of dog I've ever seen before. Like, what are you?
They end up traveling around with a 2-for-1 package of weird creatures. It's like, a llama that's head won't stop spinning around on its neck, and the writer keeps on telling them to do things like, what is it? He says it's okay that I'm not guiding him. I've set it to autopilot, and the llama's carrying a sign around his neck that just reads autopilot.
I also forgot about Ruby as another side character who's just kind of like, and Ruby gets his moments. You know, Ruby has those times of like cool, you know, like, hey, I'm a goofy character, but I'm gonna get my real battle chance to give my character emotion. There's just a lot of these characters though, and they're not bad. Like you hate Plu obviously, and I'll note I feel like Griffin probably, I guess in general, is just one of those characters who's just there to kind of have the exposition or to just provide like viewers with kind of a context or things. But the other character I think I really like a lot, actually one of the ones I found I really enjoyed going through the second time through was Julia, who is I'm trying to remember, she's the wife, I believe. I'm sorry, I'm on the Rave Master wiki here just to remind myself. Anyway, I believe she's married to him. If not, they're at least a couple, with one of the other characters in the series, Jet, who's like a member of this dragon clan who's a martial artist. And she comes into the series actually much later. Not Julia, with an L. Very similar names, not actually that similar of characters though. But I enjoyed her a lot because when she comes into the series, she's just like this kind of refreshing new presence into the series that to this point hadn't had like a female character quite like this to this point. You know, Ellie has her, you know, fine moments, but she is ultimately kind of put into the role of like the MacGuffin more often than not, just based on the sorry, it's not Jet, it's Let, sorry. But she is based on this kind of role of, you know, being the instrument of entity power. You know, Ellie doesn't get as many of those opportunities to just kind of be on her own and do these badass things. She's the more plot relevant character, so she has to kind of put in those roles. But Julia was just kind of cool to see because you're like, okay, this is like another character who kind of pops in here and just like can have cool fights, just gives a new influence to the series, just, you know, adds to scenes. And her relationship with Let is one of the cooler things. Like there's the Eration 6 when we get finally introduced to them again. Nick, I think you might be muted still, by the way. When we get introduced to them again, we kind of meet, I think, 5 of them at once. And what was kind of cool was that the characters at the time all had characters in that group. I'm Nick now, apparently, according to my overlay. There were characters in the group that kind of corresponded to these characters. Not intentionally, too. Like, to this point, you didn't know anything about... It's not like Let was just like, I am here to fight dragons and find my wife or whatever. Like, it kind of just naturally built to that point. Like, we find out, oh, Reina has this connection with Musica. And obviously, you know, these guys are going after Ellie, so there's a connection there with her. And then Let has his, you know, someone over there who calls himself the Dragon Master. It is literally kind of, like, enslaved his wife as a dragon to ride into battle with it. It's like kind of this cool relationship that we see build up and actually get, like, a satisfying conclusion out of. Although, I will note, Deep Snow's garbage. I thought that going through back in the day, and reading through now, Deep Snow is not good. So, Nick says, his call exploded. Alright, well, we'll get that figured out then. But yeah, the Eration 6 was like a really entertaining kind of like group to see come in there. And it was nice seeing like the way all the main cast kind of had connections with them and built up their sort of rivalries with one another. And I think that the core principal cast in this series was legitimately kind of an amusing group and fun to follow. Partially, I guess, because there's just more time to kind of spotlight them. And I think there was a legitimate sort of improvement in Rave Master and how the characters actually fought, how they battled. I've kind of noted before, I find the magic in Fairy Tail to be kind of arbitrary. There's not a whole lot of purpose to what characters can and cannot do, depending on what sort of magic their specialty is. But with Rave Master, it's a little bit more defined. Like, Haru has 10 swords. So he has a sword called the 10 Commandments that can turn to 10 different forms. And he spends the series kind of slowly unlocking them. Although he moves really quickly. I think the first, 10 volumes, he's unlocked, 6 of them to that point, or 5 of them to that point. But he uses them in creative ways. And that's something that's really refreshing, especially when you consider how every fight, I joked about how every fight in Fairy Tail seems to end with Natsu just running up and punching some guy really hard. Whereas in fights in Rave Master, there's moments where Haru actually displays real creativity and intelligence in what he does. You know, he fights against Siegfried, this master of magic, and he has a sword that allows him to cut things that swords normally couldn't cut. So you'd think okay, magic. All right, hold on here. I'm gonna call Nick in, so you're gonna get that oh so lovely hangout noise as I try to get Nick back in here. And let's see if this will work. It is similar to how Asta's sword works in Black Clover, though not exactly, because it doesn't nullify it so much as it just allows him to actually cut through it. And there's the inverse to it too, where they say you can cut through things that swords can't cut, but in the same way, it can't cut through a thing a sword normally would. So the idea is, okay, well, this can cut through magic, but it can't actually cut through a real sword if someone tries to block with it, you know? So Haru, uses this, kind of is tricking, he's countering Siegfried and going for an attack. And Siegfried's like, all right, well, he can't cut me. And Haru cleverly switches to his base sword, slams it in and surprises him because he's like, "Oh shit! I didn't realize you were gonna not use your magic slaying sword. Like shit, I didn't think that one through." And it's kind of cool seeing how that all kind of like comes together, seeing the hero defeat the villain, not just through having the more powerful ability or things like that, but having to kind of think things through tactically. All right. Let me get this handled with Nick. I apologize here. We'll get him in here, and we'll get his thoughts. I'm actually curious to see if Nick actually liked the Rave Master combat system stuff. Oh, wait, here he is.
There we go.
All right.
So now I know what happened. The Google's stupid, that's what. All right.
All right.
Oh, hey, look, there's a second me in here.
Yeah, I was going to say, for some reason, I have two Nicks in this call, which has me concerned. Oh my god, Nick, it's your hero / Oda, depending on which one's the evil one.
I don't know, I've got the goatee, so.
Oh, that is true. That is very true. I don't know if I want to see a Nick who doesn't have the goatee, though. I'm not,
me either. No, you don't.
I don't know what to...
I've seen Nick without a goatee. He's not as amazingly awesome looking.
As charming. So I was mentioning in the chat, or in the stream rather, how I like the battling in Rave Master because it felt a little bit more creative. Like there's thought that kind of went into it. Characters actually do have to use like tactics to win battles, and Haru is actually pretty clever with like manipulating the confines of his sword and its different forms. Like
even when he only has like the first power explosion, uses it in a number of different creative ways. Uses it, to create smoke screens and to launch himself through the air and stuff like that. I get a feeling that Natsu would defeat a lot of Haru's opponents by summoning fire around his fist and punching them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I think one part that really did endear me as reading through it again, where I'm like, it really does help for me to enjoy a battle series more if I feel like the battles have fun and satisfying conclusions. A lot of the fights in Rave Master tended to feel a little bit longer, maybe just because they dwelled on things a little bit more, but they also had a little bit more exciting conclusions, because usually the end fight, if it wasn't Plu interrupting, was something a little bit more satisfying. I want to bring this up since this is probably the closest we might get to it. I have, for the longest time, had very mixed feelings on one particular fight in Rave Master. And this comes in volume 24. It's when they're dealing with the Sky Pirate group and they're trying to defend that one village. And basically they're like, hey, he's going to drop his lieutenants down. We all have to like keep these guys from fucking things up. So it's a bunch of like individual fights. And we get one of our few one-on-one fights with Julia. And she fights the guy who's like this stinky Mexican wrestler fat guy whose full bring is to breathe wind that can somehow dissolve clothes.
Yay!
And I was curious on this because I always remember it being sort of a weird messaged fight. Because ultimately the dude starts just slowly blowing away all of Julia's clothes one by one. And, degrading her the entire time, and then basically saying, like, you've lost, I'm gonna blow off your top, and you will be like every other meek woman then who have to run away in shame. And she ends it by, like, just essentially, like, ripping the rest of her top off and be like, I don't give a shit about this, and then just, like, doing this super pile driver to defeat him, and then being like, I'm not gonna be defined by fucking that. And I always remember being, like, sort of confused at the message here, where it was like, like empowering, like I'm not going to be shamed by you or things of that nature, but at the same time it's like a very cheesecakey kind of fight. But upon rereading it again, I was like, you know what? After reading Fairy Tail and knowing what the characters in that do, I will take watching Juvia have this up. If she fucking does like these crazy super missile drop kicks in this, like she does. I'm trying to pull up one of these here. She like jumps across the room in this fight to just drop kick this guy from across the area. And I'm like, you know what? That shit's awesome. I don't care. You know what? It's weird. It's a little stupid at times, but this is a much more satisfying thing than I feel like a lot of the similar messages Fairy Tail did to this same effect. There was a lot of times where I feel like Urza would have something where she's like, the armor doesn't make me. See, I'll be naked and summon swords and, stab you with them. And then afterwards I'll be in a French maid costume or whatever.
Like, anytime that you have a fight like that where it's, where it's clear that the purpose of it is still to be cheesecakey, then I think that it corrupts whatever message you're trying to insert about body image and empowerment and all that stuff. Obviously, it's preferable to have a character who is just like whatever and kicks ass despite that, than to have one who's like, no, I've inhaled the scent, and so I've lost to the guy who rolls around upside down on his one roller skate, and
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is there's definitely a sliding scale with this stuff.
It is. Upon reading it, I will recognize it is not a very good, it's not the best sort of example of this type of narrative. But it was far more satisfied, I guess, after having the comparison of what a lot of Fairy Tail has done instead, to be like, okay, no, this is a little bit better, because at least, like, the final shot of Juvia actually winning is, like, more tasteful than what I expected it to be. You can't maybe see it from here, but, like, she's topless at this point, but they don't emphasize that as much as it is the action of her essentially, like, I don't even know what you'd call it, like, Hurricanrana pile driving this guy into the ground and beating him.
So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely the roots of a lot of stuff the hero would do in Fairy Tail in Rave Master, and it's interesting in that respect. And it's kind of a shame because it definitely feels as though he became better over time, but held himself to doing worse. If that makes any sense. It seems like he's more experienced and talented now than he was then. And he could probably do a lot better than he has been.
I definitely feel that's the case. The comparison, I think, would just be that notion of how he actually wants to, like, pay off emotional sorts of stories. Like, anything with a long contour, or anything that's just supposed to have an emotional sort of ending to it. In Fairy Tail, they tend to all come immediately, and we've noted before, everyone seems to kind of get a happy ending. In Rave Master, it's still not, like, even though it's more bleak at times, it's still not, like, that tonally different of a story. Most people still do get happy endings, or at least, villains have gotten redeemed and things like that. But there are stories you could see the roots take place earlier on in the story. There's things that get built up to and get their payoff later on. And I guess maybe just like there are villains who are just shitheads, but still feel more memorable than, I don't know, Fairy Tail antagonist 1 through 63 or whenever we fought them, There is just a difference in the quality of storytelling that's done. Particularly when you look at the world in general of how the two stories work. Because Rave Master takes this initial concept of we have to stop the Dark Brings and the resurrection and all this, and, Ellie's theory. We have to find a way to handle this. And then Fairy Tail kind of eventually being like, all right, well, we have to stop Zareth, and then Actologia in the background. There's just a difference in how those two sort of narratives eventually got their conclusion.
I don't know. I have definitely good things to say about Rave Master, but in the end, unfortunately, a lot of it just kind of blends together through a combination of factors. Part of it was that I read a lot of this while I was sick. And the other part is that stupid fucking dog.
I will say, Rave Master is not a perfect or amazing series. I think it is very good in a lot of ways. It does its genre, its general sort of the stuff it does or should be doing as a shonen battle adventure series. It does very well at times, but it also runs for a very long time. There's this period in the middle where a lot of things just blur together. Like there's the whole mermaid arc, and then having to deal with like Pumpkin Doru and Ogre. Like these things that you're like looking back on, I can't remember anything about these people. I mentioned while you were gone, I fucking hated Deep Snow back in the day, and upon rereading, I was like, this thing is still stupid and dumb. I don't know why Deep Snow was made into a big deal. It was like, shit, I thought it was the Erasion 6, and only did 5. Whoa, hold on a moment. I can add one in after the fact. No, don't. And, there's still some problems towards the end where it just doesn't have a perfect conclusion to it. But the thing with Rave Master, I guess I enjoy, is that when it does something that we've seen done before in a lot of other series, like the villain or the hero starts embracing a dark power and how will it consume him, you've seen these done before, but it's still entertaining in Rave Master. Like, it's still executed well. And that's, like, a very crucial part of what can make or break a series like this.
Yeah. Well, that's about all I have to say about it, honestly. I don't know if there's any other final thoughts you wanted to share.
I would just say, the one last thing I want to say is I definitely came to appreciate the villains in Rave Master a lot more after seeing what a lot of them in Fairy Tail became. There's not a lot that are very good, but, like, what is it? I'm forgetting the main antagonist's name right now. It's not King? Is it King? I think it is. The first time we meet him, he essentially does, like, these shit, like, he just sets himself up on the douchiest track possible, just walking up and, like, just laying a kiss on Ellie, just be like, sup, I'm gonna kill you one day. You're just like, oh, what, this dude's such a scumbag, but he's so strong. I liked it. I like the series a lot. It's not perfect or anything like that, but I think this series is part of the reason why I get so frustrated with Fairy Tail at times, because it's a sign that this could be a more enjoyable series, essentially. Like, Hiro has proven that he can write something better.
I can definitely understand that because, like, one of the things that I have always said about Bleach that really, really, really annoyed me in the last several years of its run was, like, I know how much better this can be because, like, just look at what it was back there. And I never had that same sense with Fairy Tail because although it showed flashes of good stuff, especially towards the beginning, I just kind of grew to learn over the course of a few hundred chapters, like, okay, this is what it's always going to be, so who cares, whatever. But yeah, definitely having that extra context of, previous experience with the same author, of what they're capable of creating, the kind of feeling that they're capable of creating. I can definitely understand that. They can be frustrating to read something by them that doesn't live up to what you feel is their potential as a creator.
Yep. And, hey, we're going to have a whole lot more to say regarding Fairy Tail in this week and next week, so...
Yeah, so we'll hold off on, I guess, any additional comparisons for now.
I guess the one last thing to mention is I read all these volumes physically. My friend Frank thankfully collected all of them, and I got them from him when he went to move, so I have those here, but I don't think these are actually released digitally yet in any way, so I'm not sure who owns Tokyo Pop right now.
Tokyo Pop collapsed, didn't it?
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking of...
Well, did Viz buy them up, or did someone else?
Yeah, so let me see if I can remember that.
I'm curious, only because if people are interested in reading this, it'd be a good idea to start messaging whoever owns the licensing rights and see about kind of putting out there, hey, we'd love to see this digitally, because I think Rave Master could be a definitely enjoyable series, especially if you like Fairy Tail and you haven't read this before. There's a lot of really cool stuff in here. I think you dig, but Kodansha is what Annalise is saying in there. But I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess we'll have to check that out. So, if you're looking for Rave Master volumes right now, though, unfortunately, it might be a little hard to come by them.
Okay, so let's move on to the recap portion of the manga recap. And since it's the big, final chapter of Fairy Tail happening this week, we're going to start off with My Hero Academia. So. You have to wait one chapter. Shut up. All right. So, chapter number 146, Temp Squad. Last time, Fat Gum punched really hard. They won. Yay. One of the things that I think that I'm not sure if we actually even noted last week was the fact that while he was launching his punch, he was actually cradling Kirishima in his spare arm. Which he immediately goes, just is checking on him since obviously he's just had a crap punch out of him before this. And Kirishima is actually mumbling to himself in his barely conscious state that he's, like, oh, I've got to protect Fat. I've got to do what I can. And there's a flashback from Fat Gum's perspective of the time that they actually first met. And... he says, let's see here. They talk a little bit about, Tamaki, and then Kirishima said, hey, Fourth Kind, who was way back during the internship arc, it's like, yeah, he he scouted me during for my internship, and he said actually the same thing about me, about my guts. So, interjet kids are perfect for raising morale at the agency, but that's all I can do, and I hate that. That I'm not capable of doing more, and that's why I wanted Tamaki-senpai to bring me here, because I'm a pathetic guy who abandons people in danger, but not anymore. And Feckham is really upset in the present because he knew that about his students, and he's just gotten the shit kicked out of him just by wanting to do good. It's kind of distressing, honestly, to see that expression on Fackham's face, because he's normally this big, wide, expressive, either happy or determined guy, and now he looks very sad. It's not pleasing to look at. But Punchy Dude is actually still on his feet. He manages to get back up, staggers out of the wreckage, and he says, "No, this is a death match."
I don't want to interrupt you here, but I feel as though with this revelation that he is not down, we need to establish who this person is in
voice
and in tangent form. I feel this is definitely very clearly a chance where we have seen the emergence of My Hero Academia's version of the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar!
This is a death match, and I ain't done yet!
Oh, for those of you who don't get that, Brock Lesnar is a very big man who does not have his full voice.
Does not have a big man voice.
Let's do this!
This feeling, Kirishima? This feeling that you're feeling? He's terrifying as fuck, except when he tries to speak. Give me Goldberg!
Oh.
I had no idea both of us could do such a terrible, wonderful Lesnar impression. And he says something actually quite flattering, which is, that there is a medical area just nearby, so you should patch that kid, no, that man up. And Feckham kind of rightly suspects, like, are you trying to trick us? No. Because, he's a punchy dude, and that's all he cares about.
Yeah.
The Shield guy scolded Rappa for going off script. Oh, I'm sorry, man. Lesnar's got to do what Lesnar's got to do. He's got to get hit. He's got to get in his 15 German suplexes and then do an F5 and win, no matter what you want to do, Dean Ambrose. So, sorry, that's a little bit too intense of the wrestling references. So he's like, hey, listen to me. You've got to fight this guy. You remember what you were supposed to be doing. And Rappa just steps on him and knocks him out. So Fackham's like, what are you trying to do with all of this? And he basically just gives his backstory, which is that he was an underground fighter. He fought in underground rings, and nobody could really stand up to him. And as he puts it, you know what that's like? The pain of never having real satisfaction! So he got a big thrill out of this fight, with them putting their lives on the line against each other, and so he wants them to fight again. So in order to do that, he's like, he wants them to heal up so they can immediately fight again. I mean, makes sense.
Yeah, he wants, he's a Saiyan, I guess, basically. He's like, hey, that guy's strong. Heal him up so I can fight him again. But, like Saiyans should be, he's the villain because it's really not, like, a heroic thing so much as being like, my opponent's defeated, but he's so strong. Let's see if he can get stronger and take out the world, then I'll fight him.
He says something very, very cruel, which is, I can't wait to destroy him again, that man. Ooh, it's a little boy. Leave him alone.
He's a good boy. How dare you? I mean, I'm super stoked by it. They're almost building up to this idea, like, hey, even though this guy was sort of just an opponent for Kirishima to defeat and for us to get a glimpse of what Fat Gum can really do, this guy's going to show up again later on to maybe have another fight against Kirishima. It's just kind of
entirely possible he could get kind of that like Stain treatment where he just is built up enough that even if he's detained, maybe he could come back later on. And it is nice that we're getting this kind of little bit of insight into what sets these different members of the Bullets apart from each other, these different motivations that they have. But it definitely feels like this guy is more important than some of the others.
Yeah, I mean, we know about this guy's backstory and a lot more of his character in comparison to, say, the dude he's with whose name I'm still not 100% certain on and just is a quiet, reserved monk kind of dude. Like, you know, it's a different in contrast there, but that's, you know, that's fine. I don't need each member of this group who's not even the main characters of the group that we've known the antagonist is with. These are like the secondary group, it seems like. Mm-hmm. I don't need all of them to have a whole backstory and you know, a long character, but just giving the idea that, hey, this one will be important gives a lot more depth to the group.
It actually gives me a little bit of a Barry the Chopper vibe from Full Metal Alchemist, where he was just this opponent, one of two opponents, but then he just kind of stuck around despite being this very single-minded psychopath that was bizarrely endearing in his desire to kill people.
Yeah, you know, I feel like it almost might make for a good top 10 at one point of just like the best C tier villains in series. Like the people who aren't the main antagonists or aren't even like the major like lieutenants, but are just cool for their side things. There was what was his name? Chu, I think, from Rurouni Kenshin, which basically was just like Vash the Stampede, but with a bunch of different wacky swords. He wasn't one of Shishio's like main lieutenant groups. He was like the one he was being introduced to that group about, but he had such a great fight. He was so wacky. He'd be on there.
So Feckham patches up Kirishima's wounds. He's got one piece bandages all over, so he's gonna be fine.
Yep.
Then Rappa says quite funnily, "Is he all healed up? Can I kill him?" So, yeah. Feckham is like, "What is your backstory?" And Rappa says, "Well, I'm with this group because..."
I don't know, man. I wrote something down the character sheet. Look it up yourself.
Anyway, I've got 24 strength, so... 6 intelligence. He explains himself by saying, "Overjerk's the only man I ever lost to!" Yeah, so he wanted to just, he basically got recruited and it was like, no, I'm going to just stay here in the ring. And then I died. And then I came back. And ever since then, he's challenged Overhaul multiple times and has lost every time. And he says, "I'm sticking around until I manage to beat him." And Feckham gets really scared by this because, like, wait, so Chisaki managed to immediately defeat this guy. Well, shit. So since he doesn't like Overhaul, Feckham decides to get a little bit of information out of him, and he's like, "So what is Chisaki trying to do?" And Shield Guy is like, "Ha! You think we, the enemy, would ever divulge that?" And Raps immediately is like, "Bring the Yakuza back to power!" The guy's just like, "Stop telling him things! Stop it!" So, anyway, he's trying to, like, distribute a loan of something! Needs money! At that moment, we cut over to where Overhaul is escorting, what was her name? Ruri? I think it was? Rumi? Something along those lines.
Something like that.
I'm sure it'll come up later. He's got her in his arms and is carrying her to safety along with Hoodie Guy. And, so Hoodie Guy who says that, the Shiei Hasakai is finished. We're kind of done with this. But Overhaul just says, well, as long as the boss and I still live, the Hasakai can't die. Although he does admit that, a lot of the guys here are not really under my control. So, yeah. But he also has with him the finished product and the serum, which he says will bring about their revival. And he says this whole nasty business is just the thing our friends with vested interest enjoy. They'll love the idea of a drug that scares heroes and will happily invest. And anyway, on that note, earn your keep, Temp Squad. And to, I guess, guard their escape, they've got Toga and Twice from the Villain Alliance.
I've said they have Toga twice, and I was like, wait, no, there's another person there. I'm sure they don't have her just in 2 different times. Oh, right.
He could have made a double of her anyway.
He could have. It's a cool. I like this chapter a lot. It's nice seeing Rappa's going to be developed a little bit more, and potentially might be even in the series again later on. Who knows? But I was like, he's just like, I just really care about this kid. Him getting healthy so I can fight him again later. And hey, I'll just tell you all the shit. Like, I'll tell you all the plan that I know. Like, I'm dumb. Again, 6 on the intelligence seat, but
I don't care.
I'll tell you as much as I can because I don't give a fuck. So he gives enough for you to be like intrigued, like the notion it's like, wait, Overhaul killed you, and we can see from the image, it does look like he just blew up his body from the torso.
Yeah, the same way that we saw Overhaul do it to the
Magna.
Previous guy.
And it's like, but he supposedly didn't kill him though, like Rappa. Like it almost looks like he rebuilt him based on like the way we kind of see a little bit of like his skin at the top. Like it's almost like he's rebuilding it. So it's like, oh,
maybe like he got deconstructed at the molecular level, and he can decide to reconstruct after doing that. So
yeah, so it's like, I wonder, how that works. And then ending on like, oh hey, and Toga and Twice are here. It's like, I think these are probably the 2 best ones of the villain group to put in here. It's notable enough, but just gives a little bit of tease things. We still haven't seen Dobby in a really long time. Like, I know he's still part of the group, but I haven't seen him, I think, since... there was, like, that small thing where he was, like, recruiting and found a bunch of, like, criminals, just burned them because he didn't think they were worthy.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I was almost expecting maybe he would show up here, but I think these are probably the 2 best ones to go with.
The group that they've got to work with right now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so...
I guess just jump into Food Wars. Nothing else to talk about.
Nothing to talk about.
That's it.
No.
All right. I guess I still Fairy Tail for one more week. So
one more Fairy Tail.
I guess this is for the last time, Fairy Tail, chapter 545, Friends You Can't Do Without.
Gonna have to find something for you to have to read instead of me in order to make up for you losing this one.
I don't know. We can figure that out later. I was like, what has the least number of names in it? The cover page this week, by the way, is, of course, the double color page. And I believe is supposed to be, like, designed off of Fairy Tail's first color image. If only for some of the ways certain characters are, like, positioned. Like, if you're wondering why Kana is so close to the top, it's because she was in the original one in kind of, like, a somewhat prominent role. It is amusing to see, like, this is what Fairy Tail's group has become, like, with all these fucking characters you just don't, like, remember. And you're like, oh, Elf, man, I know you're so big in the panel, but you're so minor in the grand scheme of things.
I think that the strangest part of the image is the fact that Natsu's face looks different from literally everybody else's. Like, it's just a random, different style of art right in the goddamn middle of the 2-page spread.
Yeah, it's definitely like sort of a contrary thing to everybody else, but hey, what are you going to do? So there's not actually a whole lot to say about this chapter of Fairy Tail, because this is, for some reason, let's pair everyone up ending. I didn't really think this is where Fairy Tail was intending to go at all, but that's what a big part of this chapter actually is. And it's weird because it's like, let's pair everyone up, but not commit to any of them.
Literally none of them. None of them. You know who gets more? You know who gets more pairing than literally any of the characters? Not Zareth and not Mavis.
Yeah. So the chapter all starts. Lucy's at this award ceremony where she's being given an award because she's an amazing writer. Because that's something that was in the background that Hiro kind of remembers when it was time to slow things down greatly. Anytime things picked up, you were like, she's a writer? I wouldn't know. Nothing about her says she would be. Otherwise, she doesn't talk about writing. She doesn't express a lot of interest in stories or anything like that. Whatever. She wrote, she won an award. And of course, classic, you know, Caddyshack, all these prim and proper people being exposed to the boisterous horrors of these fairy tale miscreants.
But the only thing missing in all of this is like, because the thing that actually kind of upset me as we were going through this is that it was like Hiro wanted to say like, look at how little all of these characters developed. Gray's still stripping his clothes off. Juvia's still hopelessly in love with Gray. All that he was missing was there to be a random, like, I don't know, like that kiddie ride hobby force type of thing so that Natsu could fall on it and then get car sick.
Yeah.
Like,
now, to be fair, those are all supposed to be, like, character humor traits. Like, they're just supposed to be vehicles for a joke. So there is some development actually to be seen here from beginning to end, because they do show for a moment that Gray's a little nervous around Juvia, but then weirdly kind of states it in a way. He's like, but, you know, you're mine, so it's okay. I guess that's his way of saying, like, we're together, but he just says, you're mine, which was, like, it's weirdly possessive. I can't tell what you're, like, exactly stating there. You're like, you know, it's cool if I see you. It's... Anyway, I'm jumping around here a little bit. They make a mention about a couple different things. As Lucy basically recaps.
I guess you can kind of excuse it with Gray because you can tell he doesn't really know what to say and he's kind of mumbling to himself.
Yeah, there's also it's also kind of preceded by this weird bit where Gray's like in nothing and Natsu's like, "Hey, what are you like? I'm wearing clothes." He's like, "Why don't you go shut up?" And then Urza starts like fighting, and then Juvia, of course, as a response, is like, and now I must strip, and she's crying while she does it, and I was like, I guess this is just the thing. Hang
on a second, before you move on. There's a bit where they talk about the other guilds that are friendly with Fairy Tail.
Oh, I haven't gotten to that yet.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this is still page, like, 7 of this fucking chapter.
We went past in order to talk about Juvia before you got to the...
No, she strips twice, Nick. She strips
twice, you're right, yeah.
So yeah, basically Lucy gives this rundown. She's like, here's what's happened in the past year. So she's like, Anna's still around. Thank God.
That's the first character we've got to talk about. The first one we've got to talk about.
If you hadn't heard about her, you've been asking what happens to Anna forever. So I just wanted to get that out there. Anna became a school teacher in a very small town. And
who cares?
And then they make...
She gets a whole page to herself.
She does. And then they make this sort of weird joke where Natsu's like, oh, I get why I'm so relaxed around Lucy is because she has Anna's scent. And then Gray's like... Or no, Gajio's actually like, you had feelings for Anna, didn't you? And he's like, yep. Wait, what? You shouldn't say that so bluntly. And he's like, yeah, no, I wanted to hit that. Still would. Hey, Lucy, you think it'd be a really weird menage a trois? You know what, I'm not gonna bother asking you. You're gonna get drunk at some party at some point. Urza will probably force you into it. I'm going in. I'm just gonna tell you now.
Jesus Christ.
He's blooded.
Sudden jerk-ass Natsu.
And then they go to the only couple that actually does get really any closure to at all is Gajio and Becky, who they show as like, they've gotten even closer, although they were already close. I thought maybe this would be, they'd be like, oh, they got married or something, but they show that they're moving forward by having Levi whisper to Gajio something about a baby. And Lucy didn't hear the whole thing, but she still gets kind of embarrassed at the very idea. It's actually
really sweet because, you know, Levi is a little shy, you can tell, to bring it up, and then when Gajio hears it, he gets really flustered. So it's like, aww. Those adorable dork couple.
I couldn't tell, though, if it was supposed to be... Because the reaction people have is, like, the, like, blushed face and then, like, steam coming out, and when Wendy hears that her heart's beating, I'm like, is it supposed to be that she's... like, they're gonna have a baby? Or she's like, let's go make
in the closet and make a baby right now.
That was my thing.
Like, Levy's just, like, fucking done beating around the bush. I get Gio hears that. I was like, Jesus Christ, woman.
You know what? That was what my thought was originally. It wasn't until I was recapping, I was like, I guess it could just be that they're having a baby. My immediate thought was she's like, let's fuck now. And he's like, well, damn.
Well, considering the reaction that Wendy has, because I entirely forgot, was this a thing that Wendy has sharp senses?
It's
because
one of Wendy's very nebulously defined Dragon Slayer abilities. She did have strong hearing. But
she apparently overhears the entire conversation, and she reacts to it by blushing and her heart beating really hard.
Yeah.
So that does seem to lend a lot of credence to the theory that Levy is just flat out saying, like, let's go make a bunch of kids right now.
Let's go make a fuck. And then they kind of use this to transition to the fact that Wendy has gone back to Lamia Scale to basically part-time with them in that weird, like, preteen idol group thing. And they give it one closing note that I actually have no problem with. I've heard some people had issue with this, but they show that Sharia has learned to do a tiny bit of magic. Again, not a lot. You can see it's like tiny, like gusts of wind within her hand. You know, I kind of like that. It's perfectly fine. So she hasn't gotten everything back. There's a process to learning, but hey, there's still potential in the future for you if you want to. It's like Magneto at the very end of X3. He holds his hand out and he moves the piece just a little. And you're like, oh. Yeah,
that was like the only good part of that entire shitty movie.
That movie's awful in so many ways, but at least Magneto could move that piece.
It gave us hope for the future. I will say it's a little bit confusing, but then again, I guess that she did hold hands with everyone, which means I guess that she did dedicate some magic. Maybe I guess.
I mean, you could just say it's the world. People have magic. She could eventually like gain it back in time. Magic seems to be innately ingrained. Like what kind of magic you have seems to be unique to you. So, I have no issue with it. It's a small thing, but showing somebody has the potential to have a happy ending, they're going to have to work towards it in time, like rehabilitation almost, that's fine. Like, it shows that there was still a consequence to what happened with Sharia, but there's a chance that it could have a happy ending ultimately. That's fine, you know? That's the kind of consequence light scenario I'm happy with. It'd have been a different story if it's like, oh, Sherry got all of her magic back and she's like windsurfing, like, guys, I'm even stronger now than ever. Like, they cut around to basically the other guilds, who all kind of get shafted as their guilds.
They really do.
As their guilds all got like one note left off on. Apparently, all Sabretooth, the like more edgy guild, is left with is like, Minerva holds an eating contest that she always wins. It's like, fuck you, Sting and Rogue.
Sting and Rogue don't even get to be in the panel, really. Like, no. Sting is well. Oh wait, that's supposed to be Sting, the guy who got all fat. Yeah. And Rogue's just collapsed on the table.
There's no send off for Sting and Rogue in this. Like, there's no. They lost in their fucking eating contest. That's apparently all.
Those two Dragon Slayers that were part of the final battle.
Somehow Cobra eclipsed you guys at this point. Blue Pegasus is, of course, boiled down to the fact that Ichiu is super funny. Ha ha ha, laugh at him. He's super funny. He's so weird. And then Mermaid
this part really bothered me.
Is degraded to the point where they're all exclusive models for the Weekly Sorcerer. And it's Kaguya who's just like, what am I even accomplishing here? As she's bent over on all fours in a bikini being photographed.
She's doing straight up, grab your idol shoot. And she's just like, why am I here? Yeah. It's like, I don't know. Why are you there? And I thought your whole thing was your rivalry with Urza and wanting to overcome her. Why are you a bikini model now?
It makes no sense, and it is punctuated by her two guildmates who are like, all pumped up! Never underestimate her! Underestimate her what? She's doing photo shoots that she doesn't seem to get understand she can't comprehend the purpose for anymore. Like, she's just been boiled down to like another in-universe fairy tale joke.
Well, and to reference, because we've done a lot of different finales now on the podcast. This is something like the fourth, I think, that we are talking about in great detail. Maybe the fifth. I think fifth.
If you count Bakuman, yeah.
Right. And so we've got a lot of different examples of character resolutions that go in between series with. Remember with Sugumi, she was now this model, but there were a couple of things about it. One was that she worked with Chitoge. So these two friends were still together, even if Chitoge wasn't actually there when you saw her. And also there was the note that I think that you brought up, which was that, she's left this, life behind of her basically being this assassin, and she's left that violent life behind, and she can move beyond that and do something else. With this, though, I never got the impression that Kagura was miserable with what she was doing before, or that this has nothing to do with this.
It doesn't seem like she's happy doing it.
No!
She's like, what is this accomplishing? You're like, I don't know.
I've sold my soul.
Don't make me start comprehending the meaningless of life and our jobs and what we do with ourselves. I can't deal with this.
It would be better, literally, if a character showed up and was like, yeah, Kyra decided that she wanted to stop all that swordsmanship stuff and just become a model because she was really proud of her body all of a sudden. It's like, okay. But no, she's just, there's like, why? Not even like she's sad or anything, just like, why am I doing this? What is my character motivation now?
This bikini covers nothing. And Nick, this is why I like the Julia fight in Rave Master more, because of shit like this, basically.
Imagine if it were that same bit and she was just like, why am I topless?
Yeah, she's like, who cares, I guess. Yeah, so then afterwards, it seems like Gildarts is actually the one doing it, who kind of like, I guess it's just it's Gildarts and Kana, because they're both just vicious alcoholics that no one has any way of corralling. Just push more booze down people's throats, and Juvia, it's like, I can't stop the urge to strip more, and just like starts ripping her clothes off, and Gray like pushes her away, and they note how she still has her scar on her side from when Gray, like in his rage, kind of attacked her, and how he still has his scar from that scenario too. And he's like, you should have gotten yours fixed. And she's like, well, why didn't you get yours fixed? He's like, because guys are different and stuff. And, I care about your body and stuff. And that's the other thing, like, Wendy overhears and, like, immediately goes like, oh.
Oh, they're gonna fuck too.
Yeah, he's like, I want to go make a fuck baby over there.
Which I think actually goes to, I guess, take away from that theory of like, oh, they're gonna make a baby. No, I guess they were just having a kid, because Wendy gets upset when Gray kind of pseudo confesses to Juvia. So maybe she's just really easily flustered because she's 16.
It's weird that this is like the ending for the Juvia Gray subplot that's been running for like 7 years or so now. Like, there is no...
He kind of cares about her now, which we already knew after the flash forward.
I feel like, I thought we had kind of reached this point a while ago where Gray was able to at least acknowledge, hey, I do kind of care about you, I just don't express it very well, or something like that. Like, it's still that same point. And this is where we go around and we're like, here's the other pairings that we give no real conclusion to. And they're like Elfman and Evergreen. We're like, okay, that was something that's actually been like a side background kind of plot for a while. And they're like, they're still together. They've made no progress. The end. I was like, it was baffling to me because first and foremost, Elfman is one of the most tragic characters in Fairy Tail for me because he started out so promising, and this shot, I think, captures his role in Fairy Tail perfectly. The last we will ever see of Elfman in Fairy Tail is him going, man, in a particular way, and that's it, as the plot literally says, man, nothing happened here. Okay, like, I would it have been weird to have just said they got married? Like, they were already basically a couple. Like, I think they just hadn't been official about it. But just saying, like, oh, they're engaged to get married, because they already say, like, they act like an old married couple. Like, why not just make that commitment to say, like, hey, something actually happened in this past... It's a year forced forward to explain how nothing has happened in this past year except Lucy won an award.
Maybe if, like, Lucy hadn't been busy away writing this fucking novel of hers, then we would have had this done for the perspective of someone who had been actually keeping up with the couples and would actually be able to tell us what the progress between them was.
Yeah. And then we cut away to what is this weird joke about how Laxus was apparently, like, a pairing monster. They're like, what about
apparently
Laxus and
Laxus got paired up with a bunch of girls by the fandom.
Yeah, I was like, Laxus and Mira Jane. I was like, I didn't ever see anything between them. Like, no, but it was a rumor that happened. But what about Laxus and Lasana? I'm like, wasn't Lasana supposed to have feelings for Natsu? I didn't see... did her and Laxus share a scene together at any point? And he's just like... I like the scene where he's just like, are you the real Lasana? What are you? And she's just like, stop!
Which makes me think that he's referencing the whole Edalus thing, which is like... Yeah, did he ever actually, like, get closure on that? Because he would have been a member of the guild when she disappeared, too. So has he gotten to talk to her? And
he's like, I thought you were dead. She's like, no, I got trapped in another dimension, and the one from that one got trapped here and died. He's like, this is way too... goodbye. I'm probably going to ask you the same question in a couple years when I ask you this again. Laxus and Kana? And they're like, ho, yeah, I'll have a drink. And they're like, there's just too many rumors about Laxus. And
let's not dedicate to any of them.
I guess that's the final note to leave Laxus on, is that he is a suave playboy now. Nothing,
you know what?
by the way.
Fuck it. I apologize for all the cracks that I made about freaking Choji and Karui and Kiba and Cat Girl. At least they fucking said, like, this is the couple. Here it is.
A year passed and things happened. Nothing happens. It's weird, too, because they don't fully express what the end result of a lot of things were. Like, we don't quite know what happened to, or what the state of the guild is, right? Like, I don't think they establish who the guild master is. I assume it's still Makarov, but there's never anything to say it's...
I'm the five-time guild master of Fairy Tail!
But, like, wouldn't it have been a nice note to, like, end it on of, like, hey, Laxus has become the guild master, showing him
he's
growth.
now a responsible person who people can trust in. He's a strong leader, and he knows what's best for Fairy Tail now. He earned that position that he wanted, and he did it the right way.
It's like, nah, it's funnier to be like, he's sexy. Like, that was never... Whatever. Alright. He almost killed everybody once, but... Anyway, Urza's there to basically be like, congratulations, and let's talk about Urza.
Do you think that this dress has enough cleavage? It goes down to my belly button, but do you think it could go further?
I mean, she's not like lifting it up to. She's not lifting it up to stare at her crotch. So at this point, I consider it a conservative attire for her. They actually spend time mentioning the princess of this kingdom, which I forgot was a thing. It's a back thing world of Fairy Tail. They mentioned that they pardoned all of Crime Sorcery, so Gajeel, Cobra, all those characters, they get pardoned. And that's nice because you at least get the sense that these people will get happy endings that happen.
It's the most time that really got spent on any of the characters having follow-up. This is like the one thing that this whole chapter really accomplished was like, yes, this thing has actually been resolved.
Yeah, so it's a nice way to at least show that there's some things here. And they show the characters and they're still a little remorseful because they're just like, okay, I'm not, so sure on this or whatever, but, they're going to get a happy ending at least. And they note that, like, we want you all to live for the sake of the kingdom and the people. And this is very important to Jalal because, I don't know, he's fucking mysterious and emo and shit. Anyways, Urza's angry, I guess, because she was included in the book and she's all nervous because it brings up the fact that she has feelings for Jalal. They don't do anything. Another relationship is ended without it establishing if in any way it moved forward. They just know Urza brushes her fucking hair.
That's the follow-up, is like, I don't know what happened between her and Jalal, but one thing I do know is that ever since the pardon, she's been combing her hair every day when she hardly showed any interest in it before.
Wasn't her hair always straight?
It was always straight. It was always perfect. Her hair went into a perfect hairstyle with every armor transformation. She doesn't need to brush her hair. She can just equip something that has long, flowing red locks, and she's like, done!
I love this shit. The end of Urza's arc is supposed to be this emotional moment that it just doesn't even factor into it.
The one thing I do know is that ever since Jalal got pardoned, she stopped brushing her hair. Just comes up.
Yeah, like
Frisians everywhere. He's gotta go for this. Jalal shows up. Oh, Urza, your split ends make me want to fuck you right here. Let's make a baby. When he's like, oh.
Makarov shows up, and I'm shocked there's no caption bubble. It's like, were Mistgun and Makarov an item? Who knows? Nothing said of here consequence either, by the way. Makarov's here. His legs are hurt. Is he still the guild leader? They call him master still, so yes? I don't know. There's just nothing there. And they ended on this thing of like him saying, I wonder what I saw. That shot of Zareth and Mavis walking away. As we basically see what seem to be reincarnated versions of Mavis and Zareth meeting each other in this party. Like, the Zareth character picks up this napkin and hands it to the Mavis character and is like, I think you dropped this. Because he's very dorky now. He looks like a very shy character. And she's like, oh, thanks so much for this. And And Nick, their love was so powerful, it led them to kind of transcend time and be reborn. But they're still very much the people they were.
They're still very much the same people. Zareth is now goody-good, but Mavis doesn't really walk around with shoes because she's all forgetful. And, Zareth thinks that's so charming, so they walk off together, and they get to know each other. And the guild is like, they get to be together now. 1 year passed! How are they reincarnated? They're fucking adults!
You could just say, I guess...
Did their essence, travel through the world and possess these two innocent people?
I like to think they just took their bodies over, yes.
I am Mavis now.
You're sorry, Rosa, but your body is mine, and I'm falling in love with the dude I liked.
And the Yurk Empire shall rule over humanity.
Oh, man. Mavis as a Yurk is a great concept. All right, I'm wrapping this up.
Logia comes back.
I'm wrapping this up because we had to finish here. This is essentially the conclusion. The only piece that's left at the end is Natsu and Lucy almost share the idea that maybe there's something there. Lucy thinks it, and Natsu's, of course, like Natsu. They have, their Kingdom Hearts ending moment where the music should start playing. It's just let's go off on another adventure, everybody. And they run off into the distance. And it's up for us, the audience, to assume that something interesting maybe happens this time. Credits, the end. Oh, also, it was all about friendship. And friendship is the strongest magic there is.
I hope you all find your own place like fairy tale that you can't do without. Also, fairies are real. There's a fairy, a random Tinkerbell that... Oh, wait, it's Zera! It's Zera, I think. The Mavis friend, but she's a fairy now. She's a Tinkerbell, and she's like, bye!
Goodbye, everybody!
No refunds!
There's no... Dio has a good point. No space guns, so this is a bit inferior Grandy. Look, we'll speak more about Fairy Tail in a whole next week. Just as far as this final chapter goes, I forgot I read it until I reread it again, and I was like, I guess absolutely nothing of consequence really happened. It was weird to do a time skip when you really just had nothing to do with it. Nothing changed. No progress. It's just weird. I guess maybe it makes some logical sense, but you'd think if Hero really does write Fairy Tail for the notion of just pleasing the fans, why wouldn't you just write conclusive endings to pairings you've already established? I get not saying all right, Mirajane and Laxus got together because you're like, well, the fan fiction writers wouldn't like it, but you couldn't give Evergreen and Elfman some sort of closure.
You couldn't have Gray actually say that he loves Juvia. He has to still be the exact same point that he was at when they went off to train together. Come on.
You couldn't have Urza and Jalal see each other at the end of this? What's he doing at this point? Is he just on a cliff in a fucking the Organization 13 robe, just being like, never, the darkness. Oh, I can't. But you've been forgiven for everything.
There's actually a missing scene in this where Jalal he goes to Urza's apartment and he knocks at the door, and the door comes open when he knocks on it, and he's like, Urza, are you here? He hears weird noises. He opens the door, and Seek from Rave Master is making out with Urza.
She's like, oh, I thought it was you.
And then the other Jalal shows up too. It's like, oh!
And then Ploosh shows up, and the scene gets better from there, I assume.
All right. It was dumb. It was pointless. It was Fairy Tail, so of course it was.
I loved it.
It was the most Fairy Tail way of doing a Fairy Tail ending, so whatever. Let's move on to Astra Lost in Space. Last time we had a lot of follow-up on the kids learning that they are clones, the way that they're reacting to the news, and this time in Chapter 36, they're essentially finally actually getting ready to set off from this world and head on to the next leg of their journey. And it's a big Paulina chapter. Before taking off, they go to where they lost the signal with her crew. She wants to have closure, essentially, and she basically goes to their resting place. She finds a rover that's been wrecked and is overgrown with foliage and stuff like that. The kids search through it and they manage to find essentially dog tags And Paulina confirms, oh yeah, this belongs to Glenn. But before she can really react to that, she suddenly realizes that something is happening and tells everyone to run as this massive tower plant comes out of the ground. A whole bunch of them start to emerge and attack everybody, so they have to make a break for it. And it leads to this great image of this wide shot of Olgar and Charse and Luca all reacting and trying to get away. Oh, Luca's going, "You've got to be kidding me!" It's a very bizarrely comedic moment as death surrounds them all. So Paulina pauses before running away because the dog tag that they picked up has gotten caught on one of the plant towers, and she's staring up at it instead of doing anything. And Kanai's immediately like, "Oh, leave this to me. You guys go ahead." So he has to fight with this thing for a little bit. It's sending out tendrils to attack him, and he's fighting them off with a spear that he's crafted. And so he thinks quickly to himself, like, okay, should I try and throw the javelin? Well, no, it'll just swat it away with its tendrils. So instead, he gets a running start, uses the javelin as a freaking pole vault, jumps over the thing, grabs the dog tag on his way over, lands on the ground, and has the most bizarrely comedic follow-up to this badass scene where he just spins around like, "Running now!"
Later!
And runs away and gets to safety with the dog tag and gives it to Paulina. And everyone says, "Hey, yeah, you should have at least one keepsake from here to remind you of them." And Paulina says, "Yeah, thank you. So now I can leave this place behind." And she says, she holds her hands together around the dog tag almost as if in prayer. And she apologizes to her fallen crewmates and says, "I couldn't mark your graves, but I will serve as living proof for all of you." Quick chapter, because it was very action-oriented, but it did do a lot to establish a very emotional connection with Paulina. I know that when she first joined the crew, we were kind of saying, "Oh, now there's a member of the crew that could die." And now we have that emotional attachment, so that first off, it seems less likely to happen, and second of all, if it does happen, we'll at least care a lot more, because the kids are close to her. They're nicknaming her, calling her Lena now, as opposed to her full name. And seeing that big moment she had helps to put her closer to the tier that the kids are on in terms of that emotional connection.
Yeah. No, I liked it quite a lot. I like Paulina surviving. I was worried as I was reading. I was like, "Oh, don't kill her off, please."
Immediately.
Yeah, I'm glad that the series isn't, because I feel like it would be almost against what the series has kind of been about, of sort of being like the Breakfast Club in space, to just be like, hey, let's watch this one disposable character come in. It's like, nah, I think it should be about how people aren't kind of disposable in that way. So right. I'm glad she's around, and hopefully we get a lot out of her in the future.
All right, let's move on to Food Wars, Shokugeki no Soma, 224 Camera Flash. Getting more back into the thick of the contest. Last time we had Miwasaka assist Kuga with his tracing ability so that he gave him this special sauce. And so we see more of Kuga's preparation for his dish, working with aluminum foil. There's a lot of discussion over how he's turning his wok essentially into a makeshift smoker. A lot of discussion of various techniques, smoking, what it can do with them. Okay, thanks. I don't know what any of this means. And he reveals that the sauce that was prepared for him is smoked soy sauce, which, oh yeah, Ibusaki, his specialty is smoking. The Bangs guy. Yeah. He doesn't really get to do anything, but he's apparently really good at smoking food.
So he gets his ability showed off via the nature of Mimisaka just copying him.
Essentially.
That's pretty fucking great.
It's really kind of, it kind of does bum me a little bit. Like, I know that, we've got, the freaking, like, jocks in the group, and we don't really care about them, but each of the other characters in the Polar Star dorms had that moment to shine in the Autumn Classic where they actually all basically proved that they had what it takes to really hang with the top students in their year. Ibusaki and Marui in particular were like a few points away from landing in the top 8 and going into the finals. And since then, there have been hints that some of them might do something more important. For example, I think Ryoko has occasionally helped out with dishes. She had that little moment where her sake was praised by the judge earlier in this. There was like hints that Ibusaki was going to try and really dedicate himself to improving when they went on the stagiaire week and stuff. But in general, none of them have done anything at all.
No. And this has sort of been a sad problem with Food Wars in general recently, is a lot of the side cast has kind of been neglected. Not even just the Polaris kids, but you think even to like Kurokiba and Alice, and even Hayama to a certain extent, even though he had his big reveals being a ninth seat. Like, we haven't really seen them all get to really shine in that way, so it's only the ones who were kind of left that get this moment. Like, the moment of smoked soy sauce is a Subaru moment, because it's him copying the other guy and being like, I did this and I'm going to do it for you and I'm still going to win. And it's like, I mean, it's kind of cool for Subaru, but I guess go fuck yourself, smoking kid, because you just got replaced.
It really does make me think that, or rather make me hope that after this arc with Azami and stuff, that the series keeps going, because it feels like there's a lot that I want to see from more of these side characters. I want them to have that moment in the spotlight that they can't have as long as the Azami administration is in control. So they go for a moment and are like, hey, well, Mimasaka spent that time preparing that smoked soy sauce, so is his own dish going to suffer as a result of that? But he reveals that he has this new special ability as we get introduced briefly to Some. He doesn't get like a big exposition about his abilities or anything like that. He doesn't, for example, get the long explanation that Rindo had a few chapters ago. He's just like, he's the greatest sushi chef of his generation, Some Saito. And he's carrying this giant-ass fish behind him, and he cuts it up with his sword. And
see, the fourth seat, I'm perfectly fine with it just being like, they're really good at sushi. Like, okay. That's fine. The third one, I was like, I feel like
ramen.
Yeah, I was like, that's where my hard line was. Was like, nah, it's got to be cooler. God, I wish the Shoshi dude had gotten like fucking caramel as the like ingredient, or like whipped cream. He's like, all right, fuck, I guess I'm making dessert sushi.
Oh man. So Mimasaka and Some basically prepared the exact same thing, and Mimasaka reveals his new ability, which, and honestly, a really badass little sequence where he's perfectly mirroring what Some is doing down to the last little movements. And it's just a cool little display of, like, chopping, peeling it this way and basing it this way, mixing this up, and preparing stuff simultaneously, and is put down as without a single second of lag, because he's copying him so perfectly that he's doing them at the same time as well as the exact same way. And Mimasaka explains that this is an extension of his perfect traceability, Flash. With the speed of a camera flash, I instantly perceive and analyze both my opponent's actions and intent, and have my body mimic them with photographic precision. It's like, how the fuck is that possible? Who cares? He's got the Sharingan now.
It's like, thank God you guys were working on perfectly symmetrical kitchens, so that had one of your objects been somewhere else on the table, it would have completely been for nothing.
Ah, my finger's been chopped off.
Why would they put it on the other side of the table? They're like, because you two are facing each other. Of course it's going to be mirroring. He's like, I'll try it.
But, it's a really cool moment, and they follow this up by saying, like, hey, that essentially means because Mimasaka is so able to perfectly replicate what Some is doing instantaneously, that means that he was able to use all the time Some was taking to prepare his dish, instead preparing the soy sauce, and then he was still just at the same pace. It makes absolutely no goddamn sense, but it's shonen as fuck, and I love it.
Yeah, I sat there, it's like, so, I mean, he was making the sauce at first. What was Some during that point? Like, was he just staying there being like,
I mean, I'm only fine with this because it really feels like it's the last thing that Miyazaka's ever going to probably get to do in the series. You know, it's having a character start off with, you know, oh yeah, he very carefully researches his opponents and concludes what they're going to do, and then he goes one step beyond after he has all this time to prepare and plan, as opposed to, yeah, I can just immediately tell what you're going to do.
I fucking Eisen you. I know everything you're going to do. I am the Almada now.
But what this essentially means is that it's no longer just Tsukasa taking on Kuga. It's essentially like he's in a handicap match. He's got to take on Kuga with Mimasaka's help. So he's like taking them on at the same time. And the Central supporters all boo this, and they're like, that's not fair. I thought that you had like pride and wanted to go on one-on-one with him. And Kuga said, I'm a mature adult, you know. I'm not gonna act like some spoiled kid putting my pride first. But he's saying it with this weird expression on his face. Those words do not match his facial expression. But he said something, you know, really clear, like, hey, you know, I've got these people relying on me now. I can't afford to just be prideful about the way that I'm gonna do this. My job's to eliminate you from the competition. So you're not going to win this. I'm going to defeat you. And Tsukasa is forced to admit at this point, it looks like you're not the same chef as before. So, a cool chapter overall.
Chapters.
Okay, with that out of the way, then let's move on to Dr. Stone. It's more stuff in the village going on, and before we focus more on Chrome and Senku and Kohaku, we actually get this little montage of people around the village reacting to the news of Senku's arrival. It's a cool moment of, you know, like rumors spreading around the village, and of course, nobody's really met him yet, so they don't know what he's actually like, which is a nice touch. There's, you know, some girls who are gossiping about him, wondering, it's like, oh, is he strong? Is he handsome? There's, you know, the leader of the village like, fuck this! How dare he come here with all of his bullshit? When they, you know nothing about them.
You see the game of telephone that's essentially happy to people sharing the story.
It's a great little moment, yeah, where, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, he blew bubbles, and so the next girl turns around and is like, oh, he's like this fucking alien.
I like this kind of innovative, like, storytelling. Just trying to do something different here, of like portraying essentially the news spreading through this town as this one giant panel of different reactions. I liked it a lot.
And then we get some focus at the end of Kohaku and Ruri's father, who is very, very pissed off to have learned about this. So upset that he breaks a mug in his hand. Oh! And it's like, ow, ow, ow. So Senku says, like, okay, here's what we want to do if we want to cure Ruri. We've got to create antibiotics. And we're going to need to do a lot in order to do that, because we've got to, you know, skip over a couple of million years of scientific progress in order to do that. But here's how we do it. And he draws a roadmap, like just a flow chart of different scientific progression, and he draws it like almost a board game.
Yeah,
it's really silly. But anyway, so he's like, so this is where we need to start off. We need to use this and all this, and Senku leads them off in order to gather stuff. Time passes, and he collapses all of a sudden. Because, oh wait, that's what's going on. Okay. I got confused about what's going on. Senku agrees to basically provide explanations and lessons to Chrome, who's got obviously a billion different questions to answer. The entire day passes, and Senku's collapsed because he's spent all this time explaining shit to Chrome, and who's still excited and wants to know more. And, you know, Chrome's like, the Earth itself is spinning! Yes, because gravity. But a bit of time passes, and Chrome says, like, you know, I always thought that it was weird that there's, you know, one star that never moves in the sky. And Senku's like, yeah, it's the North Star, you know, that's the really bright one, and it's always pointing north. So it's really handy to remember that. And immediately both Kohaku and Chrome are like, it's not exactly due north, though. Zega's like, what are you talking about? The margin of error is like really tiny. And then he realizes, 3,700 years have passed. And in that time, the Earth's axis has shifted enough to the fact that it's no longer exactly due north. So he scolds himself for the fact that he's overlooked this. But he's, realizes, man, it sometimes just doesn't occur to me just how frickin' much the world has changed because of just how much time has passed. But then he thinks to himself and he says, how the hell do you guys know that it's not exactly due north? How would you even know that? And Chrome gets, pretty arrogant for a little moment. And he's like, oh, yes, well, I found this bad stone that always floats north. And he takes out this basin of water that's got a little rock floating on a leaf on it. And he's like, yeah, it always points straight north with this. And Sega's like, oh, you made a magnet. He's like, oh, you know about that. God damn it. But Senku immediately jumps to, oh, hey, if we've got this, then we can actually start making some progress. And because he then uses that to make a bigger magnet, and they go foraging through a stream in order to collect iron sand. And he's like, hey, with this we can really start making some progress. We can make iron tools. So that's the end of the chapter. One note that I will make is that I'm actually oh gosh, what's his name? Hang on a second. The artist's name. Boichi. I'm actually proud of him for showing restraint on Kohaku's swimwear. He could have very well made her look be in a lot more cheesecakey poses as she was going through that stream in that.
I was gonna say it could have been a shot from behind.
Yeah,
because it basically looks like she's wearing a rope as a thong.
Yeah, it would have been very easy for him, and he chose basically the two most conservative poses that she could be making while wearing that. So
he also had there's one shot early on in the chapter of like Chrome, her, and Senku all doing these like badass like, yeah, let's do it, and they're all like from below, which is fine because you wouldn't notice it. But her speech bubble is very clearly placed right where it would just be a very flagrant upskirt shot otherwise. Like it's like right, like, all right, if I don't put it there, you just see everything.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens if this gets an anime adaptation, what they're going to do with that.
I assume you just move it up. Like there's no reason to keep it that low of a shot, but hey, what are you gonna do? All right. Let's blaze through We Never Learned. Question 24. Dauntless Genius struggles against rumors of X. And this is a Fumino chapter. We haven't gotten many of those recently. And it starts off with her basically hearing from Yuiga how he went to their Kirisu sensei or Kirisu, whatever, their sensei's house. And she basically pulls him outside and like has him up against a tree. It's like, don't tell anyone that, because the other girls, they're gonna really get the wrong impression. Of course, comedically, cut away to someone else seeing the scene from afar and taking the scene out of context. This group in Fumino's class who calls themselves like the B Squad or something, like the Thorn Club. That's what they call
New World Order.
Yeah, they call themselves. They call themselves the Thorn Club, and they apparently make it their express interest in protecting the sleeping beauty that is Fumino, so that she can keep her positive attitude and help the rest of the class. So they believe that she's dating, or at least has interest in Yuiga. They want to vet him, essentially. So they secretly, like, with, like, fucking radios in their ears and shit.
They're like the Secret Service.
For a moment, I thought I was reading Nisekoi. Like, because that actually did have spies and shit in it as characters. These characters just show up and do, like, they watch over them to just be like, all right, let's see. Wow, their relationship is really boring and dry. He is really boring. Oh my god, there's just no sex appeal here. What's going on? Cut away, and she's like walking, Fumino's walking home with Yuiga, sees the leader of that group, and she's like, there's clearly nothing going on between you, nothing to worry about. And she's like, as she's walking away, like, no, in fact, the relationship you share goes far beyond that of a boyfriend-girlfriend. And I'm like, are you gonna show up again, or is... Because you feel really similar to Sakijo, but not enough of like an interesting way. You just have that same role of a side girl who cares about that girl's connection with Yuiga. Anyway, the chapter essentially ends with Firmino telling Yuiga what had happened, why they were acting a little bit weird, and him be like, "Oh man, I didn't realize that." And she's like, "It's not your fault. It's my fault. Hey, it almost seemed like we were a real couple for a moment. Just kidding. Ha ha ha." And he's just like, "Whoa." She's like, "No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Or am I?" And that's where she basically has this moment where she's just like, "Oh man, I could never happen. I couldn't fall for the guy my friends like." And I'm like, please don't do. I was really liking Firmino as this neutral force. I knew we'd eventually get back to this, but I really hope this is a slow burn, because she's much more interesting as somebody, as a neutral party who doesn't have feelings and just wants to sort of see her friends happy than anything else.
It's just a really awkward way to get her to move from not caring at all to caring a little, because that initial spark is kind of the thing that's really going to stick with you when you analyze how her feelings for Yuiga inevitably develop. And it's really annoying to me that it just happens because some people thought that they looked like a couple, and she's like, what if we were a couple? It's such a stereotypical way of going about it. Just she imagines it, and then that's it. Fuck off.
It's weird because this is the same premise that's been used for essentially creating drama with Uraraka and or Takamoto and Yuiga in that same way, because they were like, oh, well, there's rumors going around about you and Ogata from In the Woods and things like that. And those misconceptions of things, creating this idea of a relationship. It's if we're doing it here, I've almost just thought you would have done something. Yeah, and it removes
the context of the way that the two of them felt about Yuiga to begin with before that.
Yeah, as I said, I thought this would be where we'd get to eventually. I figured this was always kind of been a plan, but it was really nice getting Fumino as a neutral third party. And I really kind of hope that if she does fall back into the harem, it's a slow burn to that point, because she's much more interesting as someone who's not chasing the lead, but still has a connection to everybody. It's not a bad chapter. It's just, it felt really weird in how it was delivered, because it didn't really do anything new as much as it kind of just took pieces from what previous arcs had kind of done.
All right, let's move on to the Promised Neverland. We get a brief moment at the start of this chapter of the pursuers following up on the scene where they've lost Ray. They see the message that he carved in the tree, where he says let the message of go to 0632. And the demons are talking amongst each other, and one of them says, what the hell is 0632? And he's like, I don't know. So, indicating that the map of source that they're following is something that they have no knowledge of, which is nice. We get basically that we got down to where Sanju and female demon are leading the kids down the path that will lead them out of the forest safely. And there's a bit of a weird moment where one of the, they're like, hey, do you guys live in this forest? And the girl says, no, we're just traveling through because, we travel place to place. And one of the kids is like, why is that? And Sanju pauses, and then he goes, who knows? He looks really evil when he says it. I feel like he's supposed to be looking ominous as opposed to just I'm going to eat that kid for asking that question.
So you're going to say something about eat eggs, nerds, or something? He's like, maybe.
We get basically Emma and Ray passing on the information that they learned about the way that the world was separated. And they just reiterate over the course of several pages, we're still going to do this. We're going to get home. We're going to get to safety. We'll go to the world without demons. In so many words. Literally, it's like 3.5 pages. Hang on. It's 6.5 pages basically dedicated to just Emma saying, reiterating all this stuff. The meat I feel that we get from all this is actually where Gilda pulls Emma aside afterwards, and she gets really intense with her. And she said, hey, if you're not feeling well in the future, you tell us. Don't push yourself to the point where you're going to faint. And she doesn't say it really seriously. She's like, if you don't tell us, you're going to tell us if you're going to get sick, okay? You will tell us. It's a very dark and intense side of Gil that we have not seen before this point. And I feel like it's really establishing kind of this motherly role that she's kind of going for with this group, which sort of makes sense considering the fact that, you know, there's this group of kids and they're the older ones, but most, you know, Ray and Emma are just the leaders. None of them is really the sort of caretaker of the group. There's got to be someone who looks out for their health, I guess. And there's also a moment that's very similar, where a bunch of the little kids are scolding Ray the exact same way. You know, Ray is thinking to himself from the sidelines, like, "Ha! She's getting scolded. You tell her, Gilda. I would never have to be scolded by children. What is this all thing? No, perfect. Stop it. I know what I'm doing. No, I would have totally gotten away from them. I would have teleported and flown in the air like Superman and punched him. Yeah."
Actually, I'd have been the Sentry, which is a much more interesting character because they show that a man with Superman's power would have dark inclinations without having to go super grimdark. Like all.
What are you talking about, Ray?
None of you got comic books with the art gifts. I guess gifts like baby memories are something unique to cool people.
There is a cool little moment where
also like, Daredevil.
There was a cool little moment where, you know, one of the kids remarks like, "Oh, Ray was trying to pull off some big heroic sacrifice and kill himself again. Yeah, you were just trying to die, Ray." And Ray's like, "I was not trying to die." And they're like, "Let's ask Sanju." Yeah, he would have died. Totally would have died. So he has to, you know, promise the kids that he'll be more careful too. One of them embraces him and he's like, "I promise I won't do that." And all of the kids essentially make, with Gilda at the forefront, make Ray and Emma promise, "Hey, you know, look after yourselves more. Don't be too reckless as shown in hero," basically. Which there has been, I think, a lot of focus on Emma and Ray recently. Just them. Essentially since they got into the forest. Like, it seems like the others have really kind of faded a little bit. So this was a nice way of pushing forward, hey, this is a group effort, despite the fact that you two are the leaders. So the only thing that really happens beyond this is that as Sanju and girl, I'm still sorry I forgot her name. It's a weird name. That was all I remember. They kind of get a little bit of time away from the kids, and they speak in secret to each other. And she says, "Why aren't you telling them the whole truth?" And Sanju's just like, "What are you talking about?" And she says, "They've got, you know, troubles coming up. If they want to break the promise, they're going to make an enemy of the Riddle." But Sanju says, "Well, yeah, but they'll find out about him soon enough. Besides, he's already their enemy."
I've heard a lot of people theorize that this might be Minerva they're speaking to.
It's entirely possible.
Which would not be... It does actually sound quite like it. The idea that these kids really can't catch that full of a break in the world would make sense. So, I guess we'll see. But, yeah, I like this chapter. But, I guess there was no really but there. I like this chapter, period.
I liked it. It's definitely... It's got some nice character moments, but there is a whole lot of just kind of dead space in it for me, honestly. All right. 7 Deadly Sins.
All right, 7 Deadly Sins, chapter 227, Clash, Smash. So last time...
Trash, rash, hash,
Vash.
mash.
Yeah.
Dash. Fash. No, I'm done.
Okay. Eminem over here. So last time, Melodius got like trapped inside this world where essentially all of his malice and gloom was being transferred out of this world and used to power up this skeletal army that was fighting the rest of the 7 Deadly Sins, thus creating the notion that the 7 Deadly Sins are in a way, kind of right now, facing off against Melodius. And they show this off early on by showing a couple of the Sins try to fight against the skeletons. And the skeletons actually put up a pretty good fight. Like one just essentially, like, it almost looks like he just slaps her. Slaps Diane and, like, sends her into ability. And then, Gowther tries to fight some. And he's like, "Oh, my nerve magic doesn't work on them." I don't know why he says, like, Merlin has to come in and explain, "They're skeletons, you dingus." And he's like, "Oh, quite." But they know, like, wow, we can't consider any of these guys small fries at this point. These guys are, powered up by Melodius. They're tough potatoes. At which point they get serious. You know, we see King use his spear to summon this giant flower. It just starts kind of like tearing across the field and also like just zapping all of them with these laser blasts. Essentially like it's what I imagine like if you put Pokemon into the Final Fantasy world, what like a plant Pokemon's like limit break would be. Just like all the crazy shit they already do, but just to a max. We see Diane getting to do some crazy moves. Bond's actually still getting his shit pushed in, I think, because we're supposed to really get the sense he's conflicted right now and he's just not focused. So, mustache dude whose name Escanor shows up and is just like, Bond, stop being such a bitch and fight. And he's like,
I got a pig under my arm.
Yeah. He's just like, hey, you can't do this, bro. Like, you can't be nonchalant. You're gonna get shit. He's like, being nonchalant is a privilege for the strong. And he presumably like beats the shit out of a bunch of them. And then in my mind, he finishes up by looking back at Bond and being like, bitch, get your shit together. Get on my level, son. And the demon's just like, oh shit. Like, how is this? How are you guys? Your friends are beating all of them so much. I can't believe this. And you know, Malaya's like, yeah, the 7 deadly sins are friends who are destined to come together to defeat the 10 commandments. She's like, oh yeah? Well, what about the ace up my sleeve? And all of the malice from all the defeated demons comes together, compiles into this one super skeleton that has all the power, and they're like, this one is incredible. It's so powerful. And she's like, there's no way he can tolerate the immense power of the one called the Demon Lord. So the skeleton explodes. Skeleton's like, oh shit, boom! Like pops and goes flying. He's dead. And we see her face, Melascula, who's just like, I think I left the oven on! I fully expect her to just like shift out of the scene because she clearly shows how fucked she is right now. But then the last thing we see is Merlin saying to everybody, like, wait, don't lose your shit. Like, don't lose your focus because she's going to take over your soul. And boom, we see that she's taken over Diane. And the last thing we get is, I think, Elia is her name. It's Bond's, or not Bond, King's little sister.
Right.
The one Bond likes. She's crawling out of bed. She's dying at this moment, but she's crawling out because she's like, Diane needs my help. I have to save them. And before she can, you know, after she falls, she gets picked up, and a voice says, I'll go with you. And we see that it's Elizabeth, and she has recovered. So that's where we're at. It's an interesting chapter. Yeah, like the usage of what I guess is just now at this point going to be known as the Ineru face, where you just see a character, like a villain who's realized their awesome plan has gotten completely fucked.
There's also, I mean, you say that about that, but I also really like the panel where Diane's revealed to have been taken over, where it's just this big close-up on her eye, which is all bloodshot and dripping blood. And she's like, is it okay if I kill you? And there's like this fisheye lens effect on her that makes her look really creepy. So yeah, it's a really cool little shot. And then, you know, it pulls back to show her towering over all the rest of the sins with her warhammer ready. So... but yeah, great action chapter, and a couple of bam moments right at the end. So yeah, nice stuff.
Indeed.
All right. So, let's go on to Black Clover. We get the results of the character popularity poll from a while back, here.
I'm happy to say Rebecca is not on there anywhere.
He's not anywhere near it.
So, though for some reason she still makes the results page, which I feel like I feel like Annalise had some hand in that happening.
There's a really bizarre set of people that are on here. So it's like, okay, Asta's number 1. Okay, cool. Yami's number 2. Fine. Noel's number 3. Yuno's number 4, which I still disagree with, but he does show up on that character roster page, so I guess people didn't forget about him. And then 5th is fucking Nero, the little crow. I guess.
You gotta like your mascot version, you know?
Then it's Charmy, Luck, Vanessa, Fuegoleon, and Charlotte. Okay, cool. All good stuff. And then we get the English language results, which are very similar. Yami and Asta are flipped. Gray makes it on there when she's not in the top 10 for the Japanese. Vanessa, Charmy, Luck, Finral, Mars. So no real big surprises, except that apparently Japan doesn't like Finral. Poor guy.
Well, they don't like Finral. They also don't like Gray. Basically, the big switch is like Gray for Neru, which I don't know what that says about the difference in like the readership.
We like that stupid fucking crow that does nothing except peck Asta occasionally. Number 5, what the fuck?
I mean, maybe it's them reading ahead and being like, hey, the bird's probably got some connection to the Demon King. But it also could just be like, fuck, we like mascots. You know what? If you're going to make merchandise, you're going to make it out of the bird, I guess. But I don't know.
It's just, Nero's just going to show up in like 3 chapters and is going to be one of the teams in this competition by himself. He's going to gain this giant muscle body and wield double swords. I
want to see that. It's like angel wings and a cowboy hat.
And he's just like, caw, motherfuckers!
He's like, I'm going to peck your heart out and devour your soul.
He sounds like Sylvester Stallone for some reason.
Yeah,
like
I'll peck your eyes out, swallow your soul. But I'm still here. How do you
getting into the chapter itself.
Nick. Remember when I said I really hope we get to find out more about the various captains of the other guilds, the other units, because there's a lot to develop there, and they don't seem to have much personality now, and I'm really curious. Not like this. Not like this, I should have stressed. I don't know why. This chapter, rereading it 3 times, I'm just like, I'm so confused as to what's... Who? I get... what? Why now? What? Hold on. Huh?
We see a little bit of stuff on the sidelines in between battles. We see some of the people... We see Finral's team eating, I guess. And Charmy, of course, pops in and is like, hey, you should give me some of that food. La. Oh, hey, Yuno's here. And Yuno's like, why are you acting this way around me?
He doesn't even have that response. He has...
No, he just goes...
Question mark?
Question mark.
This seems to be a curious decision of what is considered a female human.
So we get... the next team battle is teams I and J, and one of them is named X, and... I love that there was a different joke in Japanese, which was Asta saying cross, but I like this one better where he's like times, because he's like multiplication. That's fucking hilarious to me. So Team I's like, we don't know who this X person is, and this fucking weird-faced guy shows up, and for one panel, it's this stupid-faced disguise who's like, oh, it's me! And then immediately the disguise fades away, so I don't know why I bother with the disguise to begin with. It's like, it's real from the Aqua Deer. It's like, yeah, he's going to be the team competition. And he's like, wait, our captain's not supposed to be in the team competition? And the Wizard King's like, well, there's no rule against it, so yeah, sure, fine.
Doesn't say in here a dog can't play basketball.
Why did he bother disguising himself that there was no rule saying he couldn't? But Real says, I'm going to avenge my team being last in the freaking star ratings, so I'm gonna do this. And his butler shows up.
His very, very important butler.
His butler is awesome. You shut your fucking face.
In this chapter, I'm introduced to Rill, his butler, his magic, his backstory, everything. This is Rill the manga, apparently. I just didn't realize it until 114 chapters in.
But, so Real's butler shows up and he's like, oh, young master, yes, I am moved by your determination. Show him courtesy today. And I was like, yeah, let's do our best, Real. And he's like, oh, you must be young Master Real's friend, Master Asta. Here, have some fucking tea. And he's like, oh, sweet. And he says something bizarre in response to this, which is, it's so classy, I can't even understand the taste. I don't know what that means. Anyway.
He's like, my palate's so shit, I can't taste tea, I guess.
I guess it does make sense. There is something about, like, the way that people's palates develop that, like, yeah, you can't really appreciate something if you have absolutely no experience with anything similar to it.
It's like if you're drinking wine for the first time, you can't be expected to have any sort of real opinion on it. You just be like, right. It tastes like what wine should be, I assume.
We spit in the bucket. So Real's like, I'm gonna use my art magic to draw the ultimate picture. 5 minutes later, oh, I'm caught! Which was actually pretty funny, honestly. He's like, ah! And I was kind of half rooting for him to just like get his shit kicked in immediately. But no. See, this is a real chapter, and he gets his time to shine. And so we get a flashback with like people like, oh man, this is so beautiful, their magic. And he has a flashback to how he's like, oh, Walter, Butler Walter, the urge to create is welling up inside me. Ever since the young master received his grimoire, he shut himself up in his room and lets his magic run wild. And everyone's like, oh no, why am I starting out this way? No, please stay strong. And Walter is like, I'm the only one not scared of Rill. I will show up in his wrecked room as he's going, no, nobody understands me. And then Rill comes around and he's like, oh, you finally see me, young Master Rill. I don't know why the fuck you exploded so much shit in my face, but you see me now. Look, does your cheek hurt after I slapped you into fucking sense? Yes, when they're wounded, people feel pain. People feel pain when they are hurt. Anyway, so that's why people are scared of being hurt. They're afraid of what they don't understand. They don't want to go near it. If you wish to be understood, try to understand the other person. You went to a lot of trouble over these pictures. You want others to see them, don't you? That said, your talent is too great. It'll probably be difficult for the people around you to understand it. That's what prodigious talent is like. There's a canvas on which you can display your magic to its fullest, young master. Why not join the Magic Knights and draw the ultimate picture? And so Rill uses his picture magic to mimic other attributes. He can just do this shit. He's broken as fuck because he just immediately conjures up the counters to the attacks that he's having against and overwhelms them and sends them back. And, yeah. He's kind of hideously powerful, actually. Now, I don't like Rill. I do love his fucking butler, though.
I hated every moment of this chapter. Everything you hated about Plu, I hated about this chapter.
No, you're the one who hates Black Clover.
Every moment I was like,
I at least will be mad at you and not me.
Part of it's just like being very tired. I've been doing a lot of schoolwork and very little amounts of sleep. But I was reading this chapter so many times. Like, why is this happening? I don't get anything that's happening right now. I feel like I'm reading a different manga all of a sudden. Like, Rill's just in the tournament. He's a big deal. He has a butler. He has a lot of trauma. He has crazy strong magic. And all of this is done in the span of like 18 pages. Fuck you. I don't care. Fuck your nonsense.
Panda Bibble in the chat. But why did the Emperor not love his butler?
I just don't get any of this. It's just incomprehensible to me right now. I legitimately feel like someone's trolling me and they switched out Black Clover with another manga this week. They just cleverly drew Asta into a couple scenes to trick me into thinking this was something else.
I really like Walter. I love the fact that he is
Walter! Fuck Walter, the butler who showed up in the same chapter as 19 other details about Rill.
I like that he is supportive of Rill and that he really cares about him and that he is this doting father figure who's just happy that his foster son has a friend. So, yeah.
I have to keep track of fucking Zerks and fucking Magic fucking Brother Boy and fucking this dude now and all this nonsense. I can't, Dick. I just can't. Holy shit. Man.
All right. What if Rill was Plu? Then I would have no idea why Walter loved him so much. I'd be like, this character's terrible. Why would you love that carrot-nosed dog? All right.
I want to know. I know why people like this chapter. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying me personally.
Just say that you hate it.
No, because I don't want people to think that what I'm saying is supposed to be like an actual point. I'm not trying to say like this chapter wasn't good. Here are the reasons. I'm saying I didn't like this chapter because I'm very sleep deprived and this was confusing and all of this just hit all of my wrong nerves and I fucking despised it with every part of my soul.
That's what being a reader is just how you feel about stuff, man. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but I don't want Annalise to like. I don't need more jack-o'-lanterns with knives in the skull left on my doorstop.
Let's finish up with One Piece. It's chapter 873, Recipe for Disaster. We get more follow-up from all of the stuff with the cake collapsing, and after all the chaos that happened at the wedding. I think that we're a little short on time, and there's a lot of stuff here that you could be saying in your Mark Wahlberg, but maybe we'll save it for later.
What? No! Wait! Syllabus Platt! What's
Platt?
Of all those happened at the Tea Party Bryment? Damn, curse you, beg! To think I actually put Lee trust in you! Side of your mother for me. Credits.
All right. We get a lot of reunion between some members of the Big Mom Pirates. For example, Peckham shows up there, and he's like, "Oh, the Fishman Pirates have packed their bags and hit the road. I don't know what's going on." And then they say, "Oh, well, Jinbei could have size." And he's like, "Oh, I've been tricked." And Brule is there, and she's gonna go to help out in capturing them. But things kind of hit the fan really quickly, because while they're making this plan on going after the Straw Hats, Big Mom is meanwhile raging because, oh yeah, her giant cake that she really, really, really wanted to eat has been completely destroyed. So she's going on a rampage, the same as the ones that we saw in the flashback. Opera got his lifespan drained as a result of this, and they're like, "Oh man, well we gotta get the head chef. We gotta get Chef Strusen." And oh, we got knocked out. Oh, he's not gonna be able to actually make a cake for days. Well, shit. So as she goes insane and starts destroying stuff, including eating a building, I think is what she's doing. Prospero just goes up and he's like, "We do have a cake for you, Mama. It's a taco cake with the same ingredients, so it's perfect." And so she's like, "Oh, but the wicked crew, they also get to the thieves." And Big Mom's like, "They've got my cake? Yeah, they've got the cake, yeah. Well, if you're lying to me, I'm gonna kill you." "Oh, okay. Bye." And Big Mom pulls like a freaking Mario because she jumps on top of Zeus and rides him after the Straw Hats.
It's like a Son Goku moment for me. She got her flying Nimbus and she's shooting off. Just imagine the theme song like do 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 do.
I will say I do kind of agree with your point from last week, which is her hunger pains aren't really intimidating. But if you saw her flying towards you on a smiling thundercloud, I think that you would be a little terrified.
Perhaps.
So everyone's like, "Well, okay, what are we gonna do now? We delayed the inevitable, and we did send her after the Straw Hat, so we might solve that problem. But Roseboro is kind of fucked now, and she's still gonna be rampaging when she doesn't get her cake. We've got to figure out what the hell we're going to do." And they're like, "Well, she's probably going to destroy the island." And everyone's like, "I don't know what we're going to do." But Pudding shows up. And Pudding says, "This wedding cake was supposed to be a chocolate chiffon cake. And when it comes to chocolate, I'm every bit as good as the head chef." And she's like, "Yeah, so if we're going to do this, I'll get together with Sister Chiffon. We'll make a new cake." And they're like, "What, really? But wait, but Chiffon is Beige's wife now. She's on the enemy side." And Pudding freaking takes a gun out. And she's like, "I have ways of making her listen." So it seems as though, Chris, that she's not just going to be some helpless damsel in distress now. Are you happy with this turn? That she's just really pissed off at Sanji over what happened now?
It wasn't better being a damsel in distress. It's better just turning good when she was much more interested as a villain, which the jury's still out on if that's how this is actually going to go.
Right. It's entirely possible that she's trying to dupe them, maybe, but I'm glad to see that she's, able to pull off this kind of "I'm taking command" performance. It's a nice change of pace for how she was very helpless in the lead up to this moment. The Straw Hats are running. They're running. They're trying to get to the Thousand Sunny. They happen to come across King Bomb, and what a wonderful reunion, because he's alive. He's well now. So that they can take advantage of him and use it as their getaway vehicle. This poor guy. He's got freaking stitches up from where he's been vertically sewn up. Jesus. But they spot the Straw Hats, and almost immediately, Big Mom starts to descend on them, and she turns her hat into a massive sword as she flies through the air after them, while demanding her cake. That's the chapter.
I hate this chapter, Nick. I hate every moment of it. Why is Will so important? He has a butler and 2 types of magic and a big backstory with the mansion and mean parents, and he's crazy. It's all a lot to take in at once.
Okay.
I'm gonna slide down slowly here.
So your thoughts on the One Piece where I hated Black Clover?
I hated it. Real was too much. This is the greatest chapter though. 10 out of 10. I don't recommend it.
Okay. That's going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap. We had to kind of rush towards the end because we spent a lot of time talking about Fairy Tail. But good times were had. Let's talk about our favorites for this week. Favorite series MVP. I will go first and say that my favorite series this week was Seven Deadly Sins. I thought it was good from start to finish. Lots of nice action and some cool developments at the end. So there you go.
Very cool. I will say My Hero, because that's the one I immediately remembered and enjoyed from this week.
Cool. Favorite character, I've kind of gone back and forth between a few, but I'm going to go with Mimasaka from Food Wars, because when he pulled off his new Purge Race thing, I was like, that's stupid ridiculous, and I think it's awesome. So, there you go.
Elfman. I don't know. No one stood out to me this week. Rail, I don't get him. He's confusing to me. He angers me with every fiber of my being, but he was a chapter, so I guess that would be him, right?
I'm not sure you're very confident in this answer, but keep in mind that it will be written down for all eternity.
Yeah, let it be said. Elfman, ... I don't know. I guess Rail, ? Put that in. I want that statistic on the end of the year spreadsheet, like the pie graph I get at the end of the year.
There was a random vote here that was half split between Elfman and Rill. That's going to do it, guys, for our Weekly Manga Recap. Thank you for joining us here on smashcast.tv/ReloT and twitch.tv/ReloT. We do the show Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, approximately. Sometimes, though, we do need to change that up, so be sure to follow us on social media so that you can stay updated on when and where we're going to record the show. He is at ReloT, I am at YRuler of Time, and the show is at WMR Podcast on Twitter. You can check out our past episodes on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube. Make sure to leave a comment and rating on iTunes so that you can help us beat the Woodworking Podcast in the hobby section. If you want to send stuff to us, feedback, questions to answer in the Q&A episodes, or just suggestions for future manga for us to read, you can send all that stuff via email to weeklymangarecap@yahoo.com. It's the best way for us to keep track of it and to keep it all organized. And yeah, so there you go. Special thanks go out to our Patreon supporters. You guys' support allows us to create all sorts of bonus content for you guys to enjoy. We just did Digi-commentary a few days ago that should be coming out soon. Some very important episodes of Digimon, and we had some very weird insights on what was going on. It was a fun time, and I'm sure that you guys that didn't catch the live recording will enjoy it. And yeah, special thanks to Steve Mann, of course, and Infamous Planet. That's about everything. The next series that we're going to be covering, now that we're done with Rave Master, is going to be one called Aku no Hana, Flowers of Evil. I'm not sure exactly what it's about. The description said that a guy gets blackmailed into forming a contract after he steals his crush's clothes one day. So it's probably going to be a weird school life thing, but we'll see how that turns out.
I hope there's a dragon in it.
There might be a dragon in it, you never know.
That'd be dope. All right, well then we're finishing up here, Nick.
We're done.
I am off now to write another page about how millennials are special for this reason and that. Nick, at this point,
is this just the topic of your writing class, dude?
Yes, the English comp class has been about millennials, the me generation, and every paper, every essay, every summary we've had to write has been about millennials. I'm to the point now, Nick, where I am developing like a Joker-like gimmick of the hatred of the word millennials. Like after this is done, I'm going to become a serial killer who just kills things related to the word millennials because I cannot stop. Like, I hate the word.
Don't show him the freaking trailer for the Emoji Movie. He'll go nuts.
I'm just like, it's so disrepresentative of a genre. I mean, the millennials are so much more than this. You know, they're special for a lot of reasons, Nick. They're a very politically active generation, as you know. You're like, but they were the least voted. They had the least voter turnout of all time this past election. I'm like, well, hold on. Because I only have to argue for my side of things in this paper.
Oh, you gotta love English classes where you don't have to consider debates.
Yeah, it's all very good. If you see me at some point and I'm just like in a pile of like thrown out essays with the word millennials scribbled all over my face, like
you got millennial drawn backwards on your forehead.
Yeah, like drooling in my underwear, and you're just like, how did this happen? You're like, all right, you know what? I think he was telling us about it earlier.
Oh man.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.